Okay, the April 24th, 2019 Conservation Commission meeting will now come to order. The first order on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, thank you all. The next item on the agenda is the approval of minutes from April 10th. Do we have a reviewed set of minutes?
Minutes have been reviewed, and I make a motion to approve the minutes for April 10th, 2019.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? And that would be unanimous. Minutes are approved. We're going to go directly to the small projects. We're going to go to NACC number 230, 129 Carlton Lane. This is continued from April 10th. Yeah, would you, if you wouldn't mind, I know you did it at the last meeting, but have a seat and just give us your name and address. And
William Schmidt, 129 Carlton Lane, North Andover.
thank you. Jen?
So at the last meeting, you had asked that we go back out there and sort of take a look at some items that had been presented in photographs previously. I did that accompanied by Mr. Manzi. While on site, you know, we did observe sort of historic uses on the property, which had been verified via historic aerials to have existed since the 90s. That said, we did think that there was also some room for some improvements to be made, and made some suggestions that plantings should be added along the stream to provide a more natural habitat where in some areas where work had been done right up to the edge of the stream, which included a garden bed and just, again, some historic uses of the property. So this plan reflects the requests that were made, which Area 1 is a planting area that's currently a garden bed that will be revegetated with 5 to 6 blueberry bushes planted a few feet off the stream. There's some old garden stakes and some other things in that area that will be removed. Area 2 is on the far side of the stream, where we had requested that the post be moved away from the bank, and there's some unvegetated area there too, which will get some similar plantings. And Area 3, which is outside of the no disturbance zone, which the homeowner wished to do some plantings. So that's the plan in front of you now. And this is all, again, under a small project to install a fence. Some posts were placed out there over the winter. You know, I let the homeowner know that it wasn't to install the fence without a permit, and so he's here for that permit.
And may have missed in your presentation. And one of the recommendations at the last meeting that was restated on the site visit was to raise the fence up off the ground to
6
allow
inches.
critter movement.
Yep, and that was in the proposal as well.
Okay.
And it would be in our conditions also, as is standard at this point.
And the purpose of the site walk, beyond the one that you would typically do and that you did do prior to the last meeting, was to flush out any activities ongoing or otherwise that were in violation, and to weigh them against some historic record to see if there was any enforceable action, and you found none.
In consultation with Mr. Manzi, I mean, I think the things that we've talked about, the bridge over the wetland, the gardening sort of right up to the edge, were supported to have been there in the historic aerials that we looked at. And then, again, most of the uses that maybe had occurred in the past are really not occurring now. There wasn't, outside of some tomato plant buckets, not really any active gardening in the gardening bed, and that's why we recommended that some shrubs be planted there.
And at least 2 of these modifications from what was talked about at the last meeting are, in my opinion, seem to be net improvements to the condition that's out there in the longer run. So we
Right.
are getting back something that we typically wouldn't have gotten had it not been for this process. I have no other questions.
Yep.
Just wanted to ask Jennifer, with these plantings in these 3 areas, Is there some sort of a date that you would suggest that they should be done by?
I mean, generally, our small project permits are for a period of 6 months. I think that would give the applicant the opportunity to plant them either in the spring or the fall. I mean, I wouldn't recommend planting in the heat of the summer, but
Yeah.
ultimately, there would need to be a post-construction inspection, so we would expect when the fence was installed that the plants would be installed as well.
Yeah, I read what's on the plan, so it makes sense to do in the spring.
All right, good. Thank you.
No questions.
Okay, so as reported, I went along on the site visit with Jen, which was my idea at the last meeting, to go out and just validate what's going on. The application is for a fence. The location of the fence post was agreed upon by us in the field, and the mitigation plantings along the where there's currently a garden, plant, I guess, a garden bed, as described. That's going to be pulled back away from the brook with mitigation, wetland plant, blueberry plantings along there and along the fence line. So we feel that what is enforceable is what we have in front of us, and what's historic, we're getting a give back on some distance between the activity zone and the stream bed. So I think it's a net, and I agree with Jen. Jen, this is a small project. What letter? I'm sorry, I missed the,
H and G?
I think, yeah, H is the fence and G is the plantings, right?
Thanks, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm looking at it. Okay, so first thing I need, is there anybody have any further discussion? I say the first thing I need is a motion to accept it as a small project and describe the categories.
So I move that we accept the project as a small project under the categories H for the fence and G for the plantings.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? There's none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. So I need a second motion, if the commission is so inclined, to approve the activities as described under sections H and G.
I move that we approve the project as a small project, and that the conditions stated earlier in this presentation and agreed upon in the field at the site walk be imposed as special conditions to that small project permit.
So that would be for planting 6
Plantings.
inches off the ground with the fence and a post-construction inspection.
That's correct.
Second.
You have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous as well. You're all set, Mr. Schmidt.
Okay.
I recommend, if you have any question before you plant anything, if you have any doubt at all, please call the office before you do it.
Sure,
Make life easier for all of us.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oops. Get back to casting here.
Second item on the agenda is NACC number 232, 315 South Bradford Street. Mr. Smolak.
Mr. Manson. Mike Smolak, 315 South Bradford Street.
1 second, I'm going to let Jen describe, give a brief description, Mike, and then we'll,
Photos of your,
Oh, okay.
oh, you sent me.
Oh, okay. Okay, thanks.
Okay, go for it.
What this small project is there's I was going to put a terrace on the west side of my house facing the pond. I was in here before and reconfigured the driveway and put a fence along the driveway for a little bit of privacy because I have my door knocked on 24/7. And so this was going to afford me a little bit of privacy, a little place to sit, and hopefully I'm a little further away from things. I know we measured the distance away from the pond, and it seems to be okay. Jen can speak to that better than I can. And,
It's more than 50 feet, I guess, is the,
the activity is outside
Yes.
the 50?
He proposes to use, was it slate pavers? Or,
Probably, yeah. What I have is, I have, for the edging, some old granite foundation blocks that was going to be the perimeter of this, the outside perimeter, and then face it with either slate or some sort of finish like that.
and that you would set it in something like pea stone or sand, so it was
Oh,
pervious?
permeable? Yeah.
Permeable.
Sure.
And the only way that it doesn't comply with the small project is they're generally 300 square feet, and this is about 340 to 350. So in the past, if you've been inclined to allow it to remain a small project, we've just categorized it as the other, which is L. And I gave you photos of the area. I think you're all pretty familiar with the site.
Pictures here.
The resource area is the farm pond, correct? That's-
Correct.
it-
Yeah.
I just wanted to categorize it correctly. So
Yeah.
it isn't like it's a dug farm pond. Still a resource area.
Well,
It was 300.
300 years ago, you might have been able to call it a Doug Farm Pond. I'm pretty sure it's a resource area now.
Right. That's what I say. The resource area is the farm pond.
Mike's not the first small act there, so.
Right.
It might be the last one at this point.
That was exactly my only question, would have been threshold, and the reality, if we can call it something else, what we're really getting is a very confined platform from which to conduct a very specific function on a very old house that's been at the pond forever. I have no problem categorizing it as something else. I just don't
Yeah.
want to call it patio and have it be over the threshold and have it be held against us in the future.
I didn't mention that there probably should be, I think I put it in the recommendations, but there should be erosion control between the work and the ponds. So a sock or silt fence, whatever is preferred.
So I'm all set.
Mike, you're a farmer. I trust you're going to use hay bales and not a sock.
Depends upon, I'm not doing any haying these days, like other farmers.
Gotcha. I'm going down. Do you want?
I have no questions.
No questions.
Okay. Are there any abutters to this project? No abutters answer. So, okay, first thing, just like the other small project, I need a motion to describe it. It looks like letter L is the correct description, if anybody feels so moved.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. And
So
if anybody is so inclined to approve it, with what are your conditions, Jen?
that it be permeable, that there be erosion control, and that there be a post-construction.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion? None. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous as well. Mr. Napoli, you have the
Yeah, I
chair.
don't think they need pretty. They're
Okay,
just-
thank you. I guess I'm
Thank you.
coming back
Thank you,
a
Mike.
little bit.
I mean, we could do pretty.
Next one is small project, 150 Old Farm Road. That's what it is.
Emailed you late today, just looking for the size of the deck posts. Again, for the same reason that we just discussed with Mr. Smolak, there's a threshold limit on the small project of 300 square feet on the deck as well.
Yep.
And there wasn't a calculation on the form, so that was my only question. But other than that, this is a deck addition. The addition, as soon as I pull up the plan, you'll see is within the 50-foot no build zone, but per your general requirement on these sorts of things, it will be connected to the house and not, a post in the ground, so it still meets the, and again, this is a pre-existing deck, and the addition doesn't increase the nonconformity. So just to categorize it, if it's less than 300 square feet, we can keep it in the deck category, and otherwise, we would need to move it into the other category.
Just want to be clear on what you're saying. The intent of this is a house with no deck.
No, house with a deck.
No, I'm saying this application, but saying in general, the intent of the small projects bylaw, or provisions of the bylaw, is to allow houses with no deck to build a deck up to not more than 300. If the existing deck is already there and they're adding only a smaller portion, but the total can still exceed 300,
Not under the small project, no, it's total of whatever is there needs to be 300 or less. That's the way we've always, any increase, keeps it at
No more
300.
than 300
In total.
in
Right.
total.
Well, no, but if they have a 600 square foot deck that needs repair
Then it can be in kind.
in kind.
In kind, that's what I'm,
This is an increase.
Want to
so-
make sure we
Right.
have the distinction on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
But they can't increase it.
No net increase, but in kind.
Right.
Gotcha, okay.
Do you know the dimensions of the new deck in total?
I can get that to you tomorrow, but it will be under 300 square feet.
Yeah, I would guess
It's a
just,
3.5-foot extension
Yeah,
Right.
based on
to
the,
that addition that was put on in 2005.
I tried to scale it off. We don't have a scaled plan, but it seems roughly
you don't have to on this project.
to
And
be
again-
less.
the extension doesn't add any foundation or footing any closer.
Right.
We'll
So
cantilever that against the side of the house.
Okay. I have no questions other than the total square footage. That's the only thing that's hanging for me.
No questions.
Motion,
So it would be to accept it as a small project A, and I would say just a post-construction inspection. Do you already have any wetland markers on site that identify that beyond the sort of limit of clearing is wetlands?
I don't. I can get one of those socks or put
No,
that
no,
on.
you don't need, I don't think erosion control is needed because you're not
Okay.
putting anything in the ground. I think what we're saying is generally, if they're, especially with the proximity of this house is to the wetland, we generally ask that you put a few of our markers up on the existing tree line, just to sort of let
There
future-
was one on a tree. We had, it came out 5 years ago, and we cut it down, and we moved the marker to an existing, another
okay, so
tree
you
right
do
there.
have
So there
wetland
is one
markers.
there, yep.
Okay, well, we may want you to add a few more if there aren't.
Sure.
If the sort of the tree line isn't marked. But those are my only conditions, post-construction and possibly wetland markers where needed.
All right, so I'm formulating a motion in my head, but let me do some quick math first. If your existing deck is approximately 12 by 12, and your 12 feet extends out from the building, and you're putting a 3-foot addition next to it, 12 by 12 is 144 square feet, and 3 by 12 is an additional 36 square feet. It will be nowhere near
Right.
300, so I don't even need to make a conditional. So I would call it, I would first make a motion to declare the project a small project on a category A.
all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, that's unanimous.
And I move that we approve the small project as category A with the conditions recommended by the administrator.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, that's unanimous. It's all set. Thank you.
All right, get that out to you.
Next one is small project 234, 542 Salem Street.
This is, I had discussed this with Lou in the fields. These are some new homeowners at a property where the land was described behind them as being, what was it, forested scrub or
Scrub.
something?
Yeah.
So they installed some garden beds, which are actually just outside the 50-foot no-build zone. In discussions with Lou, you know, this is something that we've, given the sort of size and scope of the garden beds, we probably would have required a small project on, so I've asked them just to set the record straight that they present their proposal to you and get approval. And I will find their, no, that's the violation letter. Here it is. So, there you go. Just wanna,
Sure.
Okay. So we built, so let me start off by saying, first thing I did was I went to town hall to ask about this. They said, oh, no problem. We didn't have any record of any wetlands out back. So it was very much a shock when this became an issue. We do want to go through the process and do this right. So the garden beds are basically already built at this point because that's where we're at. But they are 2 4 L-shaped boxes that are 12 by 12 on the outside, 8 by 8 on the inside. They are spaced approximately 5 feet apart from one another, constructed from non-CCA pressure-treated lumber. I have stopped construction at this point, so I haven't put anything further in that besides building those as is. I'm planning on installing some weed prevention polypropylene mesh in the bottom of them and basically just bringing them to level so that they sit square with the lines to prevent dirt from leaking out the bottom. Beyond that, we don't really plan on doing a whole lot. All the fasteners are metallic, so we're using deck screws. That sort of thing is building material. This is basically for vegetable gardening. Possibly some flowers, but we're not really planning on any perennials in there.
Joe?
Good. Seems like you followed all the right, congratulations on the new home.
Thank you.
And it seems like you tried to doing all the right things. Everybody's fortunate, including yourselves, to be 50 feet away. I am, not that I'm looking to throw anybody on the bus, but when I hear the proverbial, I went to town hall and was told, I just want to be clear, I mean, our staff wouldn't have given you bad guidance. Our staff would have
Right.
been pretty, I would imagine. So you've got to be careful of making sure folks at home know that if it's conservation related, make sure they're talking to our
Yeah,
department.
I had no indication, which is why. So
Yeah.
now that I know it's
So I can tell you're trying to do the right thing. It sounds like you really thought this through, is using even the right kind of material, particularly if you're looking to use,
Well, we certainly don't
protecting
wanna-
yourself from edible
Yeah.
fruits and vegetables is certainly is also going to protect the wetlands. So those are all good things. So nothing, the only caution is, fertilizers and pesticides as you try to nurture these vegetables along. Hopefully you're an organic farmer and
Yeah, we're not using any pesticides. I'm the chemist by trade, so I'm
excuse
pretty
me.
against them. I think the most potent thing I'm willing to use is capsaicin, which, we're growing some peppers for that purpose as well, because we'd rather just grow things the critters don't like to keep them out instead of trying to force them out with chemicals or some other means if possible.
The last recommendation is, new homeowner near a wetland, be real cognizant to any of your byproduct and your waste and composting. A lot of times, composting is a sideline of organic farming and gardening at home, so there's really not much space on your property to do that probably, so be real careful of that.
Okay.
All set.
No questions, no questions.
Yeah, you couldn't, you should buy a lottery ticket to just dig those down and end it up right at the 50.
I know.
Because you're in a whole different world if you went inside the 50.
Well, the worst case, we would have pushed them forward a couple feet if we had to, but
sure not.
they're heavy suckers.
At least you don't have to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Mr. Lynch just mentioned, the compost, you probably should, when Jen comes out to do the post, designate a compost area,
Okay.
if you could, so that everybody knows where everything is.
Okay, sure.
Hopefully you're going to stay in this house, I hope. Thank you, congratulations.
Let me go so far as to say that on the composting, those vertical composting digesters, the
ones they
earth
sell.
machines,
Okay.
of ones like that, they can find that they're so much easier to use as a homeowner too, and they're less inclined to creep anywhere near a wetland. They're going to stay right within that container.
Yeah, those are the ones they sell down at not the recreation department. I'm sorry.
I think DPW sells them.
Yeah.
DPW sells rain barrels.
Yeah.
They used to sell,
For
used to sell the
watering.
composters as well.
Oh, do they sell the I haven't seen that.
If you look at Earth Machine online, you'll come up with that and half a dozen other things that are available on the retail front as well.
All right, excellent. Well, I'll look into that.
What's that, Deb?
No questions.
Doug? Motion?
So I would recommend approval as a small project G for gardening. I suppose you could do L if you consider the raised gardens beds something else. And I would recommend just a couple of the wetland markers you can put some epoxy on them and stick them on the stones on your stone wall, and that way forevermore someone will know what's back there. So that's my only.
So moved.
And designate where they're going to put the compost for the post-construction.
Okay, but right now we're approving as a G, so.
Right.
Right.
Might as well do it all.
So I think Deb, you motioned, right?
All right, we have a motion and a,
Second.
all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
And then with conditions for compost location and markers.
So moved.
So, second.
All those in favor say aye. Opposed, and that's unanimous. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Next one is small project, 235 Foster Farm.
Where's Foster Farm?
Saw it there.
Did you?
Yep.
Oh, there it is.
Tyler, when'd you move to Foster Farm?
Tyler, do you mind having a seat in the hot seat here?
Yeah, so we can beat you up.
It's not often we get you here, so we want you to get the whole experience.
Okay.
This is kind of an addition to what we talked about.
Well, you just handed out, it's in our packet.
Yeah, there, when I went
Just a
out
slight
to
adjustment, right?
review what Tyler had offered to show for us, I just had a couple notes.
I'll tell you. Did you hand it?
It really looks the same.
Take a look at these, then, while I'm doing that.
So, in our travels through the Foster Farm Conservation Area, we noticed some improvements. And
Those again?
just found that we had some new trails out at the property that we weren't necessarily aware of. And Tyler came forward and let us know that he had been mowing some areas for some new trails, areas that are largely clear, and I guess the property in the past has been used for grazing cattle. So it's not very open, and we do have someone who hazed the property. So in that process, some of what was being cleared for trail didn't really seem appropriate. So we walked the parcel, talked about those areas, and you'll see in the photos that I've handed out that those areas have been sort of blocked off with some of the brush that had been cleared from them. That said, there is an existing trail that Mr. Monroe would like to keep. We've walked it with him. I've walked it with a representative of the Friends of North Andover Trails, although I don't yet have sort of their thoughts on whether what we are proposing to keep is something that they necessarily like or don't like. I would agree that the trail that you see in black is definitely a nice addition to the property and connects some areas that hadn't been used before. And it's largely in the grassy, already maintained field. The area in red, I'm sure Mr. Monroe can speak to a little better, but when the property had been used for dairy farming or cow grazing or whatever, that this was a path that was used, and you can tell by looking at the photos that it was largely open to begin with, but there has been some clearing done there. And our concern when I walked it with Mr. Manzi was that it is close to the wetland and could be subject to some erosion, so we have a proposal to how we'll deal with that issue. So I'll turn it over to you, and you can talk to them.
Yeah, so anyway, so I've been maintaining and riding out there, I don't know, for 10, 12 years with my kids, and now my grandkids will ride out there with me, so, you know, I always maintain the trails out there, cut back stuff, but I added a couple trails. I added a few trails here and there, and yeah, maybe I went a little too close to the wetlands, but anyway, we took care of that. But the one in the pink, I'd really like to keep because there was definitely a trail when I used to work out there cutting wood, and it was like when he had the cows out there, the cows all went along there, and you can see it's very evident when you look at it that it was a trail right along the wetlands. Anyway, I'd like to fight to keep that one because it's a nice trail, right, Jen? It's a nice,
It's a nice wooded area to walk through, and again, it does provide a different kind of connection through the property.
And I was thinking, like I told Jen, that I was willing to put heavily wood chip it and then put some logs on the lower side to keep it from eroding out. And I think that would do it. And as far as the black one goes, I marked that out. That's kind of a, it's through the field anyway, and it's where like all the wildlife walks. You can see there's a trail through there, and I'll do it. I'll take care of it. I'll mow it. You know, I've been mowing other trails out there for years through the fields and everything. And, yeah, but I'd like to work with you to keep the one in the pink, if we could.
So this is where it gets really, really difficult, because I have to balance a great, valiant volunteer, dedicated volunteer effort against process and procedure and the health of that process and procedure. When my baby, who's 30 years old, was in Cub Scouts, so he's been out of high school 12 years, makes it 16 years, makes it almost 20 years when he was a Cub Scout, was very close friends with a person who was you, equally dedicated, equally ambitious, very much into the trails, supportive of the town, just followed no process or procedure, and we ended up with trails where we didn't want them. We ended up trails on people's property that wasn't even town property. So we really reined that in 20 years ago, and to the point that it became the fledgling of the Friends of North Andover Trails. And ever since then, year to year, over time, it's gotten better and better and better, I dare say, to near perfection. And the process is, they bring process, they bring requests to us. If you work with them, and I'm sure you do, I know you do, and you work closely with them, they would never not listen to you. But they need to know, and we need to know, and we need to approve what it is you're proposing, and we'll walk it, because it's so much easier to do this ahead of time and get something that fits within the master plan that we're trying to achieve on a trail network. But to go in there and just simply do it, even if it's incrementally, is difficult. And in instances, there's some chance we're gonna have to undo some of the stuff that's there. And I don't want to make that as a criticism, other than we just can't continue to do it that way. Moving forward just can't happen. You don't want it to happen that way. You want to do it once. So I appreciate the ambition, as misguided as it may be from time to time. And the dedication is clearly appreciated, but we just got to go about it better. In the meantime, just wrestle this one into submission and make it work. But set the tone that it's got to come through Friends of North Andover Trails. And I'm reluctant to decide which is the right link or not until we get that input from them. And that's enough for tonight. I still like you.
Yeah, I'll work with them. I mean, yeah, I already take care of Boston Hill as part of my thing there with them, so I just don't go to their meetings, but.
That's it.
So Jen and I went out. We had a dual-purpose site visit that day. We were meeting with Tyler to view and discuss the work that he had done. And at the same time, we were meeting with Steve Young, the farmer, who actually takes the hay off the property for us. He's one of the several farmers that do mowing and hay baling for the commission under a loosely worded contract. But anyway, the trail in pink it's designated as a new trail in the evidence, but it's actually not a new trail at all. It's the historic cow trail that when Earl and Beatrice Foster farmed this property, when it was known as the Rocky Knoll Farm before the town bought it, the trail that you see in the photographs that says next to BVW, a new trail next to BVW, that's a historic cow path that Earl used to transport the cows from one pasture to another, because he operated under a rotational grazing program so that the whole place wouldn't get eaten down at the same time. And that was the area that Jen and I talked about with Tyler with respect to the possibility that because of the slope, there might be erosion. But Tyler, we gave Tyler some suggestions, and he appears to have started to implement those suggestions on our request by putting the logs at the base of the trail prior to the BVW to collect and stop anything that might migrate, if it should. So far, nothing has migrated. I'm very familiar with this property. I've lived out there for, close to 40 years, and Tyler used to work the field there for Mr. Foster. I never worked for him, he didn't pay enough. But we're both pretty familiar with this area, and my humble opinion, for what it's worth, is I really don't have a problem with that new trail. I just want to see it monitored a little bit when there's use going on, to make sure that if we have to make an adjustment, call an audible on any soil migration. And I think that, I think if we ask the end users to do that for us, they will. So I would go out on a limb, because I think we have a commitment of continued involvement and maintenance. I think that's what I just heard Mr. Monroe offer. We should, I'm okay with it. I think we should approve it and just keep an eye on it. That's my opinion.
I agree. I agree with Mr. Lynch as far as how we talked about it. I've known you forever. And I agree with what you did as far as, but if we let every town resident start cutting trails through woods, we're gonna have a problem. This was an existing trail, as Mr. Anthony has said, and I think we should try to incorporate somehow with North Andover trails, this trail.
Yeah, I mean, they're the ones who create these, the nice map you're looking at, so, if we're gonna have them make it part of the system, I just want them to have a say, and, that they agree that it's in the best interest of the property and the town to have that trail.
Yeah.
They've been helpful in preparing the maps for all our other properties, and have worked with some of the Eagle Scouts to make sure that trails aren't redundant, and that, they're not too close together. And one of my only other concerns, Tyler, too, is where the pink meets the green down by the words Hillock Trail. You sort of blocked the exit out at that point. I still think we need to be able to get out into the field at that point, so if you could just we need to create an opening there. That was just something I didn't mention to you about having walked it. But I agree, with both. I think monitoring, if you do permit it, is important, so that, the proposal's been initiated. It's easy enough to close off the trail if it becomes a problem, but, I think it deserves a shot at working.
No, I agree. I think Tyler's heart was in the right place. I think it's a great thing, because it's not a private trail, it's for everybody. But in the future, please, check with the trails people of us.
It's passion.
Yeah, I know, but it's just.
It wasn't, yeah, no, I get it. I
You know
get
what I'm
it.
saying? We just can't have everybody just cut trails through woods.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it.
All right, Deb?
Jen,
Yes?
with these two trails, the pink one and the black one, was that black one a new trail as well?
Yeah,
Proposed.
that's more of just a mowing. And again, as Tyler pointed out, I think 2 years ago, we actually noticed that there had been some mowing of that area. And the way it's drawn now, it's, it does cross at the very top, but it doesn't really have much of a choice, given that you'd have to go off property to get farther from the wetland, and we can't have that. And, as Mr. Monroe represented, it's definitely a deer path as well. You can practically follow the hoof prints and the droppings all the way around that wetland. So that one is a sort of an easy one to say is good to go.
Now, will this new trail, the pink one, be named and placed on this map?
We don't necessarily name all the trails, but what we do is mark them. We'll put trail markers on the trees and make it clear, they would be put on the map, and then they would have some markers in the field.
Okay, because the other two that are on that are named. So if that pink one was, important, that maybe that should be named.
I would leave that up to the Friends to see
Okay.
what their thoughts are on that.
Thank you.
Unless you want it to be Deb's trail.
No,
I'll move that right now, if you want me to make that motion.
no, that's okay.
We
That's
reserve
okay,
that.
Ms. that's
When she
okay, Mr.
retires,
Lindsay.
you can name it.
That's
your own.
upon retirement, exactly.
But she has to use the trail once a month anyway.
It may be Deb's trail type, so hold off.
That's fine, that's all right.
Doug?
I have no
Felt a big
questions.
following.
The only concern I have is if the Friends of the Trails are going to, you're waiting for their comment, that way before we vote on anything, we get their comment. If that's what you want.
It's a formality, it's that I don't want to compromise that relationship. I don't think we change much beyond what we just talked about tonight, but I want to make sure that they understand that we're supporting their effort. They think, I know they do, but I want to make sure we fortify that, and that if there's any opportunity for them to suggest anything that we haven't considered, that let's give them an opportunity to say that. But I have no problem with what's been done, other than how it's been done, just on process.
A byproduct of what's been done, though, there's been a lot of maintenance going on out there over the years
I
prior.
tried to acknowledge that, exactly, and
And,
I appreciate that.
Well, the other thing I want to mention is, because we as the commissioners have to consider this, the reason that Earl and Beatrice named it Rocky Knoll Farm, they didn't just pull that name out of a hat. The place is a granite outcrop with hay growing around it, and there's a lot of areas out there that are just, I wouldn't mow with my machine, because you'd be mowing rocks. So any mowing and maintenance we can get out of Tyler on this area is always appreciated as well.
Yeah, well, if I may, I mean, like 10 years ago, 8 years ago, the place was deplorable. I mean, I'm like, I think the Friends had given it up or whatever, and I brought it back. I mean, I keep it trimmed, I keep it blown off, and, but no one kind of says anything. I don't do it to have myself pat on the back or anything, but, it looks good out there. And even that trail, when we cut that, we didn't really cut anything. We cut the branches off the trees, and, I mean, you ought to walk out there, it's beautiful. I know you don't like the way it was done, but it was tastefully done.
When I say the way, I don't mean
Yeah.
physically, I
And I
mean
understand.
procedure, that's
I
all
get
I'm
it.
talking
I
about. All
understand.
I'm talking about.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to prevent, and in this case, we're probably the third time tonight, we're gonna say it wasn't, we're fortunate of the outcome.
Yeah.
Another person that many years ago, every bit as ambitious and dedicated as you, took an opportunity to become very misguided and just put the trail on someone else's property. It was
Yeah.
a horror show.
Uh-huh.
Well-intentioned, hard work, but we're just trying to prevent that.
So
Yeah.
you'd rather not vote on it tonight and wait for comment?
Well, if you want the Friends of the Trails to comment on it, then you probably should wait to.
I mean, it would just be a formality then to approve it at the next meeting.
Okay.
The other question I would have is we're having somebody maintaining the trails, but, certainly before any new trails are put on town property,
Yeah,
there should be some approval from the town
yeah, that's,
prior to doing it.
yeah, no, that's what we're
And if
telling them.
somebody's gonna maintain the trails,
Yeah.
the town should be aware that they're being maintained and by whom.
Yeah,
If they wanna appraise the individual and award him for what he's,
this is-
willingly do
Yeah.
and doing for the town, that's,
historically, Doug, no good deed goes unpunished in this town.
I was just gonna say, this conversation has come full circle, and I was never even meaning it to go there, but Friends of North Haven Trails is a recognized organization through us.
Well, through,
As volunteers, they're covered under the town's liability. If anybody got hurt on the commission of doing the work, or anybody got hurt using their product, they're covered under the town's liability coverage. And to have someone unaffiliated in an official capacity and not going through the process, we compromise that level of protection at all different levels. So it's for everybody's protection in the long run. And that's the real hard and fast fact of it. So I think that going through that official process is more than just, bureaucracy at its worst, rubber stamping. It's to provide all those protections in the end.
so approval of this project is twofold, because, as you know, the schools control half of the property with the soccer field side, and the commission has care, custody, and control of the sort of resource area side. So you would be approving it under both, under your care, custody, and control, and as a small project for a trail less than 3 feet wide, or whatever the small project allows for. So,
Nothing changes with where we are today or where we're going, other than just give, you've had conversations with,
I walked it
Trails?
with Glenn before
go.
we knew how it had been created, so, yes, I was out there, but we didn't get into the formality of what should stay and what should go, we just walked it to see what had happened, so.
He was complimentary, wasn't he? I think.
He actually said, he's like, whoever this guy is, we should have him helping us with trails.
That land comes under the jurisdiction of conservation.
So sadly, he doesn't know who he is.
Yeah, well, now he does. I actually reached out in an email ahead of time, but I just didn't get a response, so I'm sure we can get one.
I think for the sake of waiting to give them that last turn of the barrel to give us that comment, I can't imagine we would change our discussion at all tonight. And nobody needs to come back at the next meeting, so it'll be approved, but I think it's genuine to give them an opportunity to say something.
I mean, we can, my opinion of this is that it comes under jurisdiction of the conservation land, and we have the right to do what we want to it reasonably. I don't think he's defaced the property to speak of, so I think I don't think the Trails is gonna complain that he got a spur off the trail. I think we can vote it, I think we vote on it tonight. I don't think that waiting another 2 weeks is gonna make a difference. I don't think the North Denver Trails is gonna dispute it, because we pretty much give them a carte blanche when they come before us anyways.
That's not true.
Yeah, no,
Well,
and they're also.
you know what I'm saying,
They're also doing the
but-
maintenance that we don't have funding or time
Or
to
the
do ourselves,
capability,
so.
we just don't.
it's-
We
I
take
think
carte blanche, well,
They do a great
because all
job.
that
They do a
upfront work has
fantastic
already
job.
been done at the staff level. The working out the path and where it's gonna go, that's already been done by the time it gets to us.
Okay.
We don't see how much work went into that.
No,
ahead
I
of time.
know, I agree. That's why like I said, I don't,
So can I offer a motion?
Yeah, go ahead.
yes.
I would move initially that we consider this to be a small project under the letters E and L.
Second.
All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Unanimous. Unanimous, I didn't vote in the
Unanimous.
You
negative.
didn't vote. So that's unanimous vote, one abstention.
Right, but you also need to approve the conditions, which I think you were
Yeah,
requiring
I
monitoring.
just want to make sure we get it classified first.
Yep, I got
So
that.
it sounds like the classification was approved, so I would offer a second motion to approve the work, with the condition that the new spur identified as the Pink Trail be monitored by staff and reviewed if necessary. I think everything else is self-explanatory, unless you have any other conditions, Jen, that you want to add.
I think I've sort of outlined them, that they're, any wet areas should get some kind of crossing. We can talk about what that, there's one area on the new trail that needs a little bog bridge potentially if it's going to be used year-round. And we need trail markers, and there's one spur you're going to abandon, so we're not going to have two ways up that hill, and the opening will get created. It's in my notes there. And I think just don't forget that you need to, as care custody and having the care custody and control of this property, you also need to authorize the activity.
That's my motion.
Okay.
Is the authorization separate from?
Yeah, I think the
small project? I think it
authorization should be separate, but you can vote on the motion with the conditions.
You want a third motion? Okay, so,
All those in favor say aye?
aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And one abstention.
No, abstention. Negative.
Negative?
Yeah,
Or you saying no?
I'm saying no.
Oh, you're saying no, okay.
On procedure.
Okay.
So you have a 3-to-1 vote.
3 to 1.
Okay.
And now you want a third motion, Jen?
You had to authorize the activity under your care custody and control.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
And one no. I think that's the first time you've ever said
Okay.
no.
No, it's
It's
not.
not the first one.
Well, as long as I've been here.
So should I do anything about the wood chips like I said on that?
No,
The pink trail or?
Yes, they just approved it.
Oh, okay. All right.
Do you think that we should have some type of, I don't know, we've already voted on it, but some type of, what your concerns are to Tyler?
I will communicate them. We're going to write up a small project permit, and I will communicate all we've just discussed in that
Okay.
permit.
Great.
So
Thank-
wait till you get that.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good. All right, thanks.
Thanks, Tyler. All right, the next one is RDA 116 Marble Ridge, oh, excuse me,
Nope.
NACC 93 Rolling Ridge Renewal.
Hello. I'm sorry I didn't get to make the visit out there this year, but we did get our annual report for, regarding farming activities out at Rolling Ridge, and they are seeking their, I don't know how many it's been now, but it's been a few. Fifth renewal of their small project permit to continue their farm activities. So if you'd like to sort of summarize the last year, that would be great.
First, I'm Emily Strong.
I'm Fran Fink. We're in the garden committee.
And I'm Lawrence Shea, I'm the director at Rolling Ridge.
So I think the major changes that we had last year was we added 19 fruit trees and 14 blueberry bushes, but all within the approved area. And then at the end of our growing season, we extended the deer fencing sort of up the hill, but not all the way to the top. So it goes out an additional, I believe, is it 60 feet?
More like 70, I don't know, anyway, yeah.
About 70 feet.
Yeah.
So it's one large rectangle, but the approved area is sort of an L shape. I don't think I included a map in this year's.
It's okay. I mean,
Okay.
you've been-
Well, my first question was how the tree survived the deer herd.
The deer got to them. I think of the 19, I think 6 look a little shabby.
But some of them are blooming.
Okay, good. Changes proposed this year as compared to prior years?
One change was we had a lot of insect damage last year, and I reached out to Jennifer, who I believe discussed with the commission that we wanted to use neem oil, which is an organic. And so we got permission to do that last year, and I expect that we'll need to use that as well this year. But it wasn't in our original proposal when we got renewal last year.
I also reached out to the planning
That was
board.
Sprayed on,
Yeah.
right? Yep.
Yeah, the planning board under the watershed and to the water department, and all were okay with that change, so.
All set?
I have no questions. Looks very nice.
This is nice. I have a question. My only question is, you're growing frogs?
I love seeing the frogs, and I love having
And children.
kids away from the frogs.
They will calfin.
The frogs come from the vernal pool, which is right across on the other side of the road.
That's right.
It was
Thank
just
you.
fun to see all the frogs, and I took that as a sign that they were happy with what we were doing.
Yeah, they seem to be. One of them looks like they're eating well. Okay. Deb?
Good job.
Oh, thank you.
Doug? Okay, motion?
To renew the permit for another year.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you. Good job.
And we do want to invite you to come to Rolling Ridge. We're celebrating 100 year of the groundbreaking of the facility, and we'll be having a special celebration for the community the last Sunday in September. So we'll be sending out information. We hope that everyone will be able to come.
Thank you.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
And we'll show you the frogs.
We'll show you the frogs.
The frogs. Next one is 1101 Turnpike Street, National Grid.
No,
Oh, I'm
160
sorry,
Marlboro
I
Ridge.
went too far. 116 Marble Ridge Road, New Holland. I jumped off and jumped back.
You did. You jumped off.
I'm off radar.
Jumped off, Mr. Chair.
So this is, you heard this under an enforcement order some time ago, but this is an after-the-fact filing for a patio expansion on the property. You had recommended that a after-the-fact request for determination of applicability be filed, which is in front of you now. No, I don't see the photos that I took. So if you want to just describe to them what you've done and how you presented it to them.
Sure. And, I provided a separate piece with kind of a easier-to-read diagram than trying to squeeze it on. The picture you see here But, you know, when we bought the house 5 years ago, you know, we loved the outdoor property there, but there was not a lot of options to use the outdoor property. You can see the way that the driveway comes around the back of the house to the garage. Putting a deck off the back of the house really isn't an option. Putting a patio on either side of the house isn't really an option because it's almost either in my front yard or it's tucked in a corner where if my kids are in the backyard, I don't see them. So, you know, we thought the next best option at the time was to put it next to what they call here a one-story garage, what I ultimately use as a shed. And that's where we put the patio. What was there existing was just a, you know, small sloping grass hill that we had the area dug out and a flat patio installed. You can see there's a couple steps that lead down to just a much smaller patio that we have a couple chairs on that just ends up being flush with the grass. And then around the edge of the upper patio, there's a small wall that kind of holds everything in. And by everything, I mean my kids, I guess.
Joe?
Getting old and forgetful, but not, you just need to remind me, this was before us as a violation, but we gave them time to come back, which is
With an
what they're now doing.
after-the-fact file,
Which is what they're now
which is in
doing.
front of you. I don't
But
know
that was
what happened to the photos.
That was some long time, but nothing's really changed out there. This is exactly what was there.
No, the patio,
I mean, what was there when we last talked about it at this commission.
right.
Okay.
We just told him that he needed to submit an alternatives analysis about, you know, why he couldn't put the patio elsewhere, and that, you know, to substantiate that this property already incurred into the 50-foot, and that the, you know, violation wasn't going to do any further harm to the wetlands. As you can see, there's an extensive stone wall on the property and an extensive no disturbance zone
And
already
that's all the things I
monumented
remember
and-
talking about. and
Yep.
I have a vague recollection, but it may have been another property out in this neighborhood, but wasn't there some desire to return some of the pond to visibility? You were gonna do some pruning, and then
No, it's not me.
and somebody else?
No.
Yeah, and they backed away from that when we suggested you couldn't do
You're
that.
thinking of the Marble Ridge property that cut the trees?
Maybe.
We had that one.
I'd say it was
on
the same
last-
general neighborhood, but it was a different sized pond. So the alternatives analysis, as you just described it, you know, where else other than here?
Right.
Given the driveway configuration, the real garage and the shed, this really tucks in, it does go beyond the garage that was already there just a little bit, it does, but it also has a physical barrier by way of this fieldstone wall. How close to the resource area is it? I see it's like between approximately 11 and 7 feet to the wall, but the wetland's still a good distance beyond that, right?
I didn't take a measurement.
Well, the wall's at
so-
about the 25, right? According to this old
The
plan,
Yes, the monumentation's in the correct location.
is about the 25, so,
Yeah, I just measured to the wall. I mean, so if it's considered the wetlands immediately beyond the wall, then, I mean, the wall's just rocks.
The wall is just
Well,
up
small.
gradient of the 25.
In some places.
well, the fact this has no, you know, talking to myself to convince myself, the fact there's no superstructure to it, it's a perimeter wall and a patio.
I'm trying to get the photo up. It's not in the file for whatever reason.
What I'm seeing is, I'm seeing it as a big patio and not necessarily a structure, is what I'm trying to drive at here. And if it's not a structure, it is within the 50, it's not as catastrophic, so provided they've done the alternatives analysis, which I think they've done.
I think the last time they came before us was for an enforcement order, but we told them that as long as they came back with an alternatives analysis, that the project was approved.
Yeah, and I think I've just heard that it makes all the sense in the world, that even though he's gone a little bit further than the garage, that that extension is in itself not a structure, it's a patio. And it's outside the 25, and it's protected doubly. The wall that was there as part of the original permit, and the new wall that's a sitting wall, so it's protected twice.
Right.
So I'm okay with what they're proposing, and I think this,
So it has, you know, you can see, these are the photos, so there's drainage there across the front of it. That's the patio. That's the sort of wall around.
Very nice.
if it's any more protected by walls, I can't see anything else like that.
And the drain honestly is more there to keep the water out of the shed than anything. And he continued it across the patio, but
Oh, that was during construction, we'll leave those photos. There's the
When it
wall.
rains, all the water always ended up directly in the shed.
Yeah,
You get the flag.
I think they've met the alternatives analysis requirement, in my opinion. I'm all set.
Al?
My question was going to be, well, how'd you build it, but I can see the picture, so I'm all set.
I'm all set.
No question.
Doug? Motion?
So it would be, the first would be to grant the waiver of the 50.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous.
And then to issue a negative number 3, I guess there aren't any post-construction conditions required.
So moved.
Second. What do you want for post-construction conditions? Do you want anything that
No,
more
as
than
you'll
what's
see,
been done there?
there are, no, I don't think there's anything else that needs to be done in this
You
project. is-
satisfied with monumentation?
Yep,
and-
it's on the agenda for a COC later tonight.
All right. No other questions?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's see, I'll get this right. Next one is 1101 Turnpike Street, National Grid.
Thank you. Yes, you do. Did you give me a butter notification already?
Yeah.
Okay, I thought I remember a big file. Big file. So let me get back to our regularly scheduled program here. All right, so this is oh, there's all the certificates of mailing right there. This is a proposal to remediate some, oh, this isn't the new plan, is it? Oh, that's the new one, okay. I'll let you explain. I'm sure you'll do a much better job of it at this point.
I'm Mike Toohill from Conoco Engineers and Scientists here for Mass Electric. The proposal is an MCP, a Mass Contingency Plan remediation of an area where, as you can see in this old photo, where Mass Electric used to store telephone poles. And the poles leached, were old CCA poles that leach arsenic and pentachlorophenol. And Conoco is the licensed site professional, the LSP for the project. In this area, the poles are no longer there. This is an old photo. I want to show you where they were. The poles are now up on the paved part of the parking lot, but what remains is some contaminated soil from the old pole storage. So we've established a grid through the whole area, calculated the levels of contamination, the depth of contamination, and approximately 330 cubic yards of material, contaminated material, will be removed from this area and taken off-site for appropriate disposal under the MCP. The project is within the 100-foot buffer of an isolated wetland, and in the center of the picture that's up on the screen is the green line in the center is the edge delineation that Jen came out with me. We took a look at that, and you can see, you can't see from the photo, but from the wetland, there's a very steep slope that goes up to the parking area and up to the pole storage, which is a very flat area at the top of the hill. So we propose to put BMPs in the area that's shown in kind of blue and white around the edge of the area, and then from the parking lot area, do the excavation and removal of the contaminated material. That's about the sum of the project.
Joe?
330
Cubic yards.
cubic yards, so not more than 4 trailer dump loads coming out.
Correct.
And you said you had the area through a grid area and depth determined. What's the greatest depth? And at the periphery, it's probably shallowest, would be my guess?
It's shallowest at the edge, and it's greatest as you go towards the parking area, correct?
Okay. And at the deepest point, how deep?
I think it's about 4 or 5 feet was the deepest area. That area is about 7,500 square feet, something like that in total, and it varies tremendously across
So as you
that.
radiate out closest to the wetland resource area, it's barely skimming the surface to where it gets to zero, where you've
Correct.
rated the
and it's-
existing grade.
And it's still flat at that point.
That's what my point is.
Yeah.
So if anything, any erosion potential is back in towards the middle.
It's back into the cut, correct.
Okay, and access for the equipment excavating and the trucks being loaded, where is that? Is it coming off that upper parking lot, just off site?
It is.
up to-
This parking lot is, you come in the access drive off Turnpike Street, and you go through the security gate, and if you go off to the left-hand side, you come in through this, there's a building right there. You come in past that building that's at the top of the screen, and then drive straight in onto the pavement area where they do the current pole storage, and they have equipment storage back in there.
So the excavator, as he's working, you're gonna need to move the material. Are the trucks gonna pull right down into there? Are they gonna, you're gonna have to your bucket load it out to
Yes.
the trucks up on the paved surface?
Yes, correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And minimal stockpiling, if
If
there
there's any,
was. Go
if there's
ahead.
any stockpiling under the MCP, they have to do it on poly sheeting, cover it with poly sheeting, and it can't stay there more than a day.
And where would that be, up on the
That would
parking
be
area?
up on the parking area, next to where those other poles are up on
So
the
even with
parking area.
poly sheeting, we would want to know, maybe you already know, if there are catch basins up there, and if there are, we
There
need to
are none.
protect them. There are
Not in
none.
the
There are none.
this area, no.
No.
Beautiful. I'm all set.
No questions, sir.
I have a few. What are you going to replace the contaminated soil with?
Clean fill, clean fill material, and then a gravel surface. Right now, it's got a 3/4 inch crushed stone surface, and they'll put clean fill and then put a 3/4 inch crushed stone surface on top of that.
So the crushed stone surface will be removed with the contaminated soil, or you're going to take that off?
It's going to be removed with the
Put
soil.
back- And then put back in?
No, it's, everything that goes back in is clean.
It's clean.
Everything that comes out, including the surface material, comes out and goes onto the trucks.
Given the void, we want to know the source of your clean material. I'm sure you want to know where it is as well.
Sure.
The only thing that we've done battle with recently is under beneficial use determination from DEP. They're looking for markets for reprocessed glass materials, and they're making aggregates out of that. We're not allowing that as fill material
Okay.
within project areas.
Yeah, we would like to see what they were, what is going to be used
Before you dump it.
before you dump.
Okay. Typically, under MCP, they test that material before they put it back in,
Yeah.
too.
That's what I'm real careful of, because if you're relying strictly on DEP, they're gonna say the material is perfectly adequate and meets
Okay.
their spec. We're gonna say it's not, doesn't meet ours.
Okay.
So,
And have you considered putting some type of poly at the base? After you take contaminated soil for future, excuse me, in case there's any future contamination, it'll be covered underneath?
In the
Like a-
base of the excavation?
Yes.
I don't think the engineers have, but I can ask them about that.
Okay, because I would be comfortable with that. Myself, I would like to see a gravel, a poly, some type of poly, gravel, and then maybe a crushed wrap or a 3/4 stone, or probably 3, because 4 feet deep, you can get some.
I'd want them to propose to us what they're doing in that regard, because if you create an impermeable barrier and it's a bowl and it traps water within
Yeah,
it,
it's gonna,
you're actually creating an instability we probably don't want.
We don't want?
Yeah.
Okay.
For any benefit you'd have for anything leaching down in, what you really want is clean material as fill, clean material forevermore on top of it. Everything that moves through the water, through that potentially becomes the water column,
Well, it becomes-
is all clean.
It could always leach to the side also.
yeah, it's not gonna.
I think the
you don't
poly
want-
barrier is a bad.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah, I think it's a bad idea.
That's fine. But I would definitely like to see what type of material was going to be put in there,
Okay.
especially where it's so
We've also
deep.
been specifying our, that it be natural materials, and no to a whole list of things that you would not use. But we
Natural,
can-
like a
yeah.
loam, like a processed loam or
Right,
something?
sand, gravel, natural materials.
Yep.
And then we could require the spec as well. I'm
Yeah,
fine
they're
with
going to have
that.
to put some gravel, where they're going, in some rivers where it's so deep, they got to put some type of gravel. Because they put something junky, won't, it'll
That was just
settle.
a caution, only because if you're doing it under the contingency plan, you've got 3 sectors of DEP all saying very different things.
Yes.
They don't even agree with them, within their own agency.
Right.
Under the contingency plan, as long as it's clean, it's fine. Under recycling initiatives and solid waste, reprocessed glass is perfectly acceptable. In fact, they're looking for it. And when it comes to wetlands, we're not so inclined to say that's a good thing at all because of the other byproducts that mixed within it.
So like 3/4 inch stone and loam or something like that would be.
Yeah,
Sounds good.
3/4 inch stone would be too deep. If you're going 4
I
or 5
think he's
feet
proposing that
deep-
on top. right? That's
On
the-
top, yeah, I would recommend stone on top,
Okay.
because all the contaminants will just leach into the stone, and then find its way through, the water will find its way through the gravel.
Yeah, I
You'll
think
be
there
all
aren't
set.
going to be any more contaminants, and I think gravel's appropriate because, as I mentioned in my report, the entire slope is full of knotweed, so if you don't put something down there, you're just going to have knotweed.
I think the biggest thing we're trying to say is, we
Clean
want to
fill.
know exactly what the fill is.
Okay.
We're not interested in recycled glass or anything like that.
Okay.
Right.
I think that's the big takeaway.
Can we condition that?
Yes,
We will.
I think you can.
Yeah, if
I
you'd
don't
like-
actually,
if you'd
I just
like.
write the
Yes.
conditions.
Right.
That's a
Yep.
good idea, thank you.
Doug? Okay, motion.
So I would recommend issuing a negative determination, approving the work as proposed with a pre- and post-construction inspection, erosion controls as required, and a condition that we receive, of pre-construction, we receive information about what the final fill and top dressing material will be.
Do we want that to be in the form of a certificate of what the fill actually is? Like a certificate of origin and a description of what the fill is? Was that what we're looking for?
I'm just, if they say loam and, 3/4 inch stone, then I'd be fine with that. I mean,
I'll get you the proper citation on that for what
Okay.
we use for
I
highway projects.
think it
We
wouldn't hurt.
require common borrow, and we're requiring processed materials. We actually, I've got the term right now, I'm afraid, but there's a term for the report they need to file that shows that this is the source and this is what it contains.
Would that include the lab results from that?
Oh,
Soil.
you don't need lab results.
No, we just,
Not lab, it's gradation analysis, and it really tells you what the makeup of it is.
yeah, it's like a certificate of origin,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll give you that citation tomorrow. John.
okay.
Okay. All right, so need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Not unanimous. Okay, all set.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See those- did you get
Next
that?
one is
Conditions? If you have to write
RDA for 40 Ridge Way.
Right, and I have some photos on the site.
Oh, I know, I remember this one already. I remember this one already. Let's see. Did they,
This is a proposal for an addition and a new patio. When I went out to the site to review the wetland delineation, I made some significant changes to the line, which are not reflected on the plan in front of you and will need to be updated. In addition, there have been some violations on the property, including some land clearing and a shed that's been installed in the no disturb zone. You have some photos in front of you, but I'll turn it over to the applicant's consultant to present the proposal.
Good evening. My name is Dennis Creech. I'm an engineer with Andover Consultants with an office at 1 Easterly Place in Methuen. Here tonight on behalf of the applicant. As Jennifer described, the proposal was a request for determination for a proposed 20 by 20-foot addition. As you can see in the top right corner of the existing dwelling, the existing deck would be removed as well as along with an existing patio, and a new patio would be put in place. The access would be provided from the existing driveway along the left side of the dwelling. Erosion control would also be installed along the edge of that access and along the edge of the existing tree line. The wetland flags, Jennifer did send me some notes yesterday regarding some moving of the flags. The flags were, the wetlands were delineated by Norse Environmental Consultants in January of this year. So I don't think at that time they tested the hydric soils or tested if the soils were hydric, the ground was frozen. That was on the data sheets. So we communicated those changes with Norse. I don't think they're disputing those changes, so we will revise the plan to show the new flag locations based on Jennifer's field measurements. The shed that was put in, as Jennifer's saying, within the 25-foot no disturb zone, I think the applicant is agreeable to moving that outside of the 50-foot no disturb zone. The applicant's contractor's here this evening as well. Darren Martino, he can speak to that if necessary, but they are agreeable to moving that shed outside of the 50-foot no disturb to make sure that complies with the Conservation Commission's bylaw. If there are any other questions about the project, I'd be happy to answer them.
Joe?
So I'm going to throw the credibility card. You prepare an existing conditions plan that doesn't show a shed that's clearly in violation. What's up with that?
The existing conditions plan is a detail of the proposed work. It's not a detail of the rest of the site.
You're a professional engineer. Don't give me
Correct.
that. That's just simply unprofessional.
I-
This is not an existing condition plan. This is a plan that you're using to get a permit that doesn't show the existing conditions on site, which includes violations. That's a problem as an engineer.
The plan,
Oh, I'm calling you on it.
well, I'm going to disagree. I'm going to say the site plan that was submitted is for the proposed work. The addition.
Not of this
and-
commission, and that's not the minimum requirement. The existing conditions plan is an existing conditions plan, and it looks to be a clear attempt, and I may be wrong, but it looks to be a clear attempt that it's damn convenient to not show a shed that's in violation as part of your submission as a professional representing this commission, a client before this commission, and I'm not satisfied with that. And you've submitted other things to us before that we've worked with you on, and I'm very disappointed to see this. And any consideration of anything beyond that, until this shed is squared away and understanding how it is we have a plan, has no bearing with me. I don't want to hear about it. I have no more questions.
Is this supposed to be the existing condition?
It says where you want it.
It doesn't state it's an existing condition.
requires an existing conditions plan.
The RDA, I mean, if I can respond to the comment,
You know,
the
remove
criticism.
existing patio, existing dwelling, you know, the references on here clearly is that. I mean, with witness lines and measurements in the area where the shed is located with no reference of it. I mean, we've had other controversial projects come in and clients get discovered because the engineers brought it to their attention because, hey, look, you're gonna have a problem. This seems to me either a gross oversight or a deliberate action, and that doesn't sit well with me.
No, questions?
So the record drawing, I agree with Joe, there needs to be some work done on the record drawing. The record drawing appears to depict the site description in the application, but it's not complete in that respect. I understand that there's going to be modifications made to the plan anyway with regard to your wetland line, which had to be moved. So
correct.
since you've got to make modifications anyway, I'm concurring with Mr. Lynch that the plan needs to be revised and be accurate. It needs to show the entire site conditions, not just the work proposed, but what is taking place on the site completely. It has to be a complete plan. It has to be a complete shot. We ought not to be the ones discovering errors. So,
Yeah, I mean, the plan is inaccurate in many ways,
So-
because there's, the tree line that you show on the plan is not accurate according to the aerial photography.
The tree line was surveyed. The shed wasn't, I wasn't meaning to mislead the commission by not showing the shed. This wasn't an attempt to.
It didn't survey it correctly.
all right, so I'm all set. I'm just not going to, I'm not willing to take any action at this time until the plan is made accurate.
I had a meeting with Jen today, and we brought up the shed. It was legitimately omitted from the plan. The plan is inaccurate, so the shed is an outright violation. So we wouldn't act on a new application with outstanding violation anyways. So I would redo your drawing, incorporate where it is now, where you planning on putting it, Also, I want, on this plan, I would like to see construction access.
They
and-
actually have that. I misspoke about the access. It's just the stockpile location.
And the
they should
stockpile
have.
isn't on it. Well, I stopped looking when I saw the rest of it. But those are the things that we will be looking for. Yep,
No additional
They've
comments.
just said that. So
Doug?
the new line.
Go ahead.
shed.
Further comments? I think the plan does not
No, the plan
reflect
doesn't.
properly what's there.
So we need to continue the project, so the only question I would ask is, do you, 2 weeks or 4 weeks? How much time do
2
you
weeks
need?
is fine.
Okay.
So,
Motion.
I understand. I just want to make sure it's clear that, about what we're going to get. So we'll get the revised wetland line, which we've discussed. You'll show the existing outline of the shed, but you'll also show where they're going to propose to move it
Correct.
to. And if there's any variation to the tree line, that should be accounted for. I don't think the clearing that was shown in the aerials, I printed them like a 2012 and a 2017, which shows the change in the tree line, but I don't think that encroaches into the 25. And to be fair about some of why it looks like the site is less compliant than maybe it was in the past, we had a prior RDA on this site, and the wetland line has expanded over time on this particular site. So I don't think there is any existing monumentation out there, but that's something
None that we saw.
want to consider going forward.
And a stockpile.
And a stockpile.
Jen, if I may just ask you one question. This goes to the science, it doesn't go to execution.
Yep.
The moving of the flag 19 feet, I understand you operate in a subjective science world. However, 19 feet's a big distance. Was this an obvious 19 feet?
If the ground was frozen and they didn't do soils, they wouldn't have seen what I'd see. So I'd say
So just another
Just-
example of why
doing delineations in the middle of
winter
winter
delineations are just
shouldn't-
not a good idea. Okay,
Right.
understood. All right, that's all I,
Okay, motion to continue.
So moved.
second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, not unanimous, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you already give me the? Oh, okay, thank you.
Next order of business, NOI for 242-1745, 350 Winthrop Ave.
So this filing came in yesterday, and Peter was aware that, that it was sort of late incoming, but I figured you would want to hear the proposal and give any first initial comments, so if there were any changes that were required, you could incorporate that into any revisions. So the project's been reduced in scope from what was proposed as sort of a stream restoration project to just doing the culvert work. So I'll let Mr. Ellison present that to you.
Peter Ellison with TEC, civil engineer for the project. This was presented to you in December. The culvert was one piece of the whole puzzle, I would say. Included a pretty long stretch of stream restoration work that we were calling it. What we got in December from DEP was a long list of comments on more permitting that would be required to accomplish what we were showing on our plans. After that meeting and receiving the comments, we met with Jen again after that, brought Rimmer Environmental onto our team. We went out with her to make a site visit, and when we visited the site, Mary basically determined the stream's actually in better condition than what I thought and what the owner thought. She didn't recommend really the large-scale dredging of sediment that we had in mind. We were kind of operating under the assumption that the culverts coming in from DOT and from across the Route 114 were at the elevation of the bottom of the stream at some point in time. Now, when Mary was out there, she took like cores of the soil and was able to determine that she only thought there was a few inches of siltation happening in the stream, basically. So we explained that to the owner. We kind of went through the options of reducing the scale of the restoration work and I think at that time, they decided they wanted to eliminate that portion of the project and move forward with what's in front of you tonight, just the culvert work. I guess I'll just open it up to the commission if you have any questions about how we got here before I get into the actual proposal.
Joe?
So my recollection is when you first presented to us, did include that other work up, but at the time, the drawing still showed it, but your client and you folks had already received some feedback from DEP that they weren't going to allow it, or there was going to be some resistance to it, and we asked you to go back.
Yes.
And my understanding was you did.
Yep.
And it was subsequent to that is when you sat down with Jen and then brought Mary Rimmer aboard.
That's right.
So DEP eventually came around to at least, give you a path to follow.
Right.
But even at that, according to Mary, she doesn't think it's necessary, particularly necessary.
Yeah, she was thinking that we're better off leaving it alone, more or less. That was her opinion.
Yeah. So I just look at the invert elevations. There's really two main feeding elements besides the lesser elements from the catch basins on 114. There's one that goes right across the southerly entrance, the big culvert that they just replaced not
Yes.
too long ago, the
Yes.
most recent one. And then there's one probably within 200 feet of that downstream, which comes beneath 114, which picks up, what used to be a wet area, which is now a beaver pond on the other side. My understanding is, and I've got out and tried to look for it, is that pipe is not visible, never mind the invert. You can't even see the pipe. So it seemed, and it used to go to daylight. So the couple of inches, that's what drove the initial conversation to begin with.
Yeah.
It seems to me that was constricting flow and affecting that flow from across the street.
Yep.
And the goal overall would be to move all of that water through, treat it down in your area that you're now talking about, and then get it over to the river. But Mary thought it wasn't necessary to dredge that, or was it just too difficult to get the permits?
I think it's a combination of the two. That's really the best way I can put it. It's kind of a combination of those two things. You can see the top of that pipe from across the street that you're describing, and there's it's like a hole, really. So the water is getting through there, it's just coming through and then coming back up to get further downstream, so.
So the reason of the rest of it being abandoned is what it is. What's proposed now is still, as you go out the northerly driveway, which is only an exit, to the left of that is to create a treatment area, dredge it out, treatment area there, replace that pipe beneath the northerly driveway, and have it get into the existing swale, which will be cleaned out prior to hitting the river. That's now the proposal?
Yes, that's correct.
I think there's one clarification. I don't think you can quantify that as a treatment swale. When the stream daylight's on the other side of the pipe, it's riverfront again.
No, I'm talking about treatment on the left-hand side.
That's.
But it's still the brook.
Right. It's still going to remain a perennial stream. Even, it's not a treatment area. It's just, the stream is now going to daylight above ground before it hits the Shawshene River, whereas before it just dumped into the Shawshene River. So it's creating additional sort of riverfront area. There's always been riverfront area. I don't think that pipe's 200 feet long, right? Or it
It's
might
actually
be.
265 feet long.
So they didn't have riverfront area because the pipe was over 200 feet. By shortening the pipe, what comes out of the other end of that is going to be perennial stream.
Yeah, so I think, the project does still represent a positive, it's an improvement over what's out there now for your commission, for conservation. Like Jen said, we're daylighting it sooner. It's going to be a 4 by 3.5 box culvert is what we have it modeled as now. I can get into why we sized it that way if, I guess at a later point, but.
That's right. My recommendation to them is to have some plantings along that new stream bed and some monumentation about no disturbance zone and no snow stockpiling, because it is what comes out the other side is a perennial stream. And I do think it's an improvement. They're going to put the box culvert in, there'll be the natural substrate, it'll be, the openness ratio will increase, it certainly won't meet the stream crossing standards. And there's a chance for a more gradual flow of the brook rather than just a dumping over the side into the next resource area.
You have more questions, Joe?
Conversations lead me to question what the hell I'm reading on the plan. Can you gesture, you don't have a pointer, but can you gesture where the exit driveway is? I thought I know where it was, but I'm seeing double yellow lines that I'm not recognizing.
I think it's so light underneath the pavement lines.
Yeah,
Peter,
it's,
can you-
the darker black and white culvert that you see coming across, that's the proposed culvert. And there's kind of 3 white dashes. That third white dash in the culvert is where the edge of
Right
the
about here?
pavement is.
Where my pointer is?
Further to the right, Jen.
Third
Third from the right, sorry.
Oh, right here, that line, that straight line right there? where-
Yeah.
Yeah, is pavement, sorry.
Yeah, edge of pavement.
There it is.
Right, so the brick buildings, that's the garage, the gas station.
That's the gas station,
Right.
correct.
So,
Is there any tree clearing required to do this?
which makes this the driveway coming?
Right here,
up the hill?
yep.
Yes.
Coming up the
That's
hill?
it, yep.
Yes,
Okay.
that's where the trees are.
Yeah, which is the brook coming from the south.
Right.
Going across. So my question is, and again, what I think we need is treatment somewhere that's not a resource area.
Yeah, but there can't, this is a brook, like it's a brook from beginning to end, so there is no, I don't
But think
understand
about it, what they've done is relocated a brook. If the brook comes down there and it's in a 48-inch cement corrugated metal pipe that's being abandoned, that's the brook now. Why can you not simply divert the water into a treatment area, which is what this is looking like, and get it back out into the river where it wants to be? I mean, the water that's flowing through it is originating from a brook, but isn't it not functioning as treatment?
No. The swale also.
Shouldn't it?
I don't think so, because I don't want Market Basket maintaining a perennial stream.
Also, it would be difficult. The size of the flows coming
Yeah.
are pretty substantial. It'd be difficult to detain the water in any way, really.
So
They're
the
just
argument-
daylighting a
again,
stream.
I'm not trying to be argumentative,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to get as much functional improvement as we can before it dumps it to the polluted Shawshene and making it any worse.
That's pretty big, that's a pretty big discharge area. Because you can see where it was before.
Right, but if,
We're not talking
we're not
discharge.
gonna maintain a perennial stream, I've just heard this. For the exact same reason, the perennial stream all along parallel to 114 coming down to this new proposed inlet has silted up over the years because it hasn't been maintained. Yet it's functioning. It's taking all that debris and stuff out of the parking lot area over the years and it's filled in. It's going to simply continue to do that there, continue to move through this pipe.
The only way that a stream gets treatment is from the flow from banks. Whatever is on the banks is acting as the filter.
Ought to move it through a series of devices that slow it down to allow things to
That's a
settle off.
6-foot bank.
I've never seen,
Where?
6 feet, it goes from 30 to 20.
2, yeah, 8 feet, yeah.
No, 20. The bottom, the center.
Well, that's 10 feet, yeah.
Yeah.
no pun intended, but it's a slippery slope if we want to start to treat a stream.
No.
That doesn't,
This isn't stormwater, yeah, we're not, and what was happening to the stream before, the reason that this was happening, and we stopped it, was they were plowing the snow off the parking lot into that stream.
They were filling
And they're
it.
not doing that anymore.
Right.
And so I'm just sort of saying that we need to make sure that,
They did this winter, in this exact same location. It just melted away.
Just.
no,
did it to
that,
the
they
right.
stockpile
No,
snow.
these are stockpiled in the swale, the big
They-
swale.
Right, but this is where they stockpile it.
Open more.
Right here, yeah.
More by the trees.
Yep,
Within the top of the slope of that contour is where the snow was going all
well, they're
this
not,
winter.
that's why I'm saying, I think it needs to be vegetated, and there needs to be monumentation that this is not gonna be a snow stockpile area.
I agree with that.
They're gonna have to modify,
I-
relocate their snow
Okay, it
stockpile.
sounds like I'm the bad guy tonight, but it seems like The last thing you want to do is put this new perennial stream relocated now in an open channel as opposed to a confined pipe, right adjacent to an area that's a known stockpile, where historically we say to applicants, you shall not. We're acknowledging that's exactly what they're gonna do, regardless of plans. This is where all the stuff is gonna go unless they find a way to
Well, you can
deal with that
condition-
stockpile and provide protection from this brook.
Well, that's what Jen said, we're gonna put signage and we could put up some type of barrier, like you could put a fence over.
I
I think it needs to be a BMP. I don't think it's just sign of plants.
But you can't, well, I mean, we could add, if you are telling them they need to add BMPs outside of the perennial stream, then that's something different.
Well,
But
that's exactly what I'm saying, is somewhere to capture all of this material that will eventually be carrying sands and salts from the winter stockpile as they melt off, because as it's designed right now, it's directly into this open
I think we
perennial
need to
stream.
get some, and I meant to do this before, but just given the way it came in, I didn't have a chance, is we need some photos of this area so everybody can sort of better understand. I don't think I'm usually really good about the aerials and the photos, but I don't have that for here, and I think we're talking about
She just got this today.
different things.
Well, technically, if you just got it today, we're supposed to have 7 days.
Yeah, no, but I wanted
to
them to be
review
able,
it,
this
so-
has been on hold for a while, and when projects go like that, we sort of start to forget what we were originally talking about, but I will make sure you have
I'm
photos for
in
the next.
favor of a BMP, Joe. I think,
Yeah, I think it's particularly important, if we're not getting any of the other improvements up above, and for whatever reason we're not, I guess, it's absolutely important, because that is where the snow goes. And it seems to be unclear to me why they're relocating the pipe, other than it's probably in bad condition and plugged. Making it only closer to the stockpile, and for the very reason we can't treat the water in it, is the very reason we shouldn't be putting snow next to it, or not allowing this to be here.
I agree. It's fine. I'd just like to say that I'm a little bit disappointed that swale is being maintained. I think we went the extra mile to get around the Army Corps of Engineers and.
Not get around.
Well, not get around, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We try to take some of the hurdles away from you people. No disrespect to Mary Rimmer, I know, I've lived in town almost my whole life. I know that swale has not been maintained in over 40 years. It's never been touched. So to say that it's functioning.
In a positive way.
Huh?
In a positive way. They've touched it in other ways.
But I'm just saying, I think you should readdress it with the client. We got the Army Corps and DEP kind of agreeing with us. I know you hired her, she's very good at what she does, but I think we should try and do the whole project.
Okay.
So maybe you can go back to your client. You've heard them express their desire about the BMPs. We can go there, but somehow we gotta protect the area, your discharge area, from snow stockpiling or whatever, to get the debris from going into the river. The design, personally, I think your design is very good. But it just has to be tweaked a little bit. But I would go back to your client or whoever and reconsider working on I call it the swale, we're not supposed to say that.
Well, I think in this, if you do go out there, this portion of the swale there's positive flow and it's deep, and it does, this end of the swale does function very well. I think the sort of sediment islands that have accumulated are at the other end of the pipe. And they maybe could have more options to maintain it down there, because it doesn't become a perennial stream until the Den Rock portion comes in. So if there's something to be considered, maybe it's to do some maintenance at the top end.
Top end, okay.
And I don't know where your limit of survey is, but for this conversation to conclude is, I guess it's north and east of what's shown on the screen right now, is the area where they do have the stockpile of snow, the seasonal Christmas trees, sales, and then at some point, the parking lot begins. We're not seeing any of that. I'm seeing the line painting, but in I think lighted islands, but I'm not seeing where that pavement line is unless I'm missing something. Or maybe it's all in pavement.
Is there a way to zoom out, Jim?
Yeah. I don't,
It might be really light No, there's not much
That's
extra.
not a-
Yeah.
We
your
have
prior
survey for the whole
plans.
property, so
Yeah,
that's not a problem to
So to have this discussion be more productive, I need to know how much room's up there to where BMP works, if, just in this area. And if not, then the discussion might be, temporary water flow management while you dismantle that 48-inch CMP and replace it with a culvert in the same location and move the treatment closer. But I think that pipe location, from what I remembered from December, was chosen because of the optimum location to get it into the river. Wasn't that driven more by the outfall? Or not necessarily?
The location of the existing culvert is really close to the corner of the gas station parking lot, property line.
Okay.
So that's part of the reason why they wanted to shift it away. The other reason is for construction phasing, to leave that pipe in place, they need to build the new pipe to the side of it and then, decommission that pipe afterwards, basically. That's generally how this location was decided on. But I think we can, I'll talk to the owner about doing some maintenance maybe in the intermittent stream portion of, pull some sediment out of there, and we can draw up some kind of BMP for the snow storage to be directed to there before it gets back into the stream.
So outside the meeting, Jen and I will confer of an idea that I think is more viable, continues with your flow, doesn't disrupt the stream, yet provides the BMP almost in the same area with an inlet into that new structure in the same buried location, and providing, I think there's some opportunity to do that with minimal impact that would require Army Corps activity. From a construction perspective, it would certainly require, a removal of the existing pipe and laying of a new pipe in that same corridor. But I think because we're deflecting it up to the northeast, I think we're taking away available real estate that is providing whatever minimum protection we're getting with regards to a runoff control. I'll talk with Jen about that offline, and she can convey it to you, and we'll take it up in a future meeting if that's possible.
Deb? No questions. No questions. Doug?
No questions.
All right, so we need a motion to continue?
So moved.
Second.
To the 8th? 5/8?
That's
May
great.
8th?
Does that work?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Continue to May 8th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That's unanimous. Thank you.
Good on that.
Next one is... We have 242-1753, 247 Chickering Road, requested continue to 5/8.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242-1754, 326 Campbell Road.
So you have seen this previously as a ANRAD. At the time you approved the ANRAD, there was a second pond located just off the edge, or just partially on the property and just off the edge of the property. I reviewed that delineation, and there's also a flag there that needs to be moved up. I forget the distance, but it was pretty significant, again, based on hydric soils. It doesn't change the overall plan too much, so, but I'm sure that flag change can be made. The project site, which is a new single-family home, has been constructed based on the fact, outside of the 75-foot no-build zone, based on the fact that Natural Heritage identifies this as a potential vernal pool. The area is, the pond's quite large, and I got an email from Norse today stating that they didn't think it was a vernal pool, but they didn't provide me any concrete evidence as to how and why they made that determination. So I think you're still going on the assumption that something out there may be a vernal pool. I would say if anything is a vernal pool, it's the smaller pond, not the larger pond. But again, until we have that information, you'll see that the plan is largely designed to meet the bigger subzones, and it does that except for a small portion of the driveway. So with that, I'll let Dennis take it over.
So the flags that were confirmed being the ORAD were flags 1A through 24A. As Jen mentioned, there were 6 additional flags hung that kind of straddle the property line between the abutter and the applicant's property. Those were flagged. Jen did review those wetland flags and sent the email on Friday moving one of the flags. As Jen mentioned, it won't affect the design. None of the new offsets cast from the new location won't impact the design. The larger ponded area of water directly behind the home was, as Jen mentioned, a potential vernal pool. So the site was designed with the 50-foot no-build zone and the 75-foot, the 50-foot no disturb and the 75-foot no build zone to comply with those. The small portion of crosshatched area, which is within 50 feet, is a temporary disturbance to remove the existing house, which is quite dilapidated. So that will be the only portion of the site that will be disturbed. It is previously disturbed at the moment. So that is the portion within the 50-foot no disturb. Again, it's not a confirmed vernal pool. Norris Environmental did go out, or they have been out twice, I believe, to date. They haven't heard any of the coursing or seen any of the egg masses that would indicate that it is a vernal pool. However, they have not seen any fish that also would let us know that it is not a vernal pool. So again, that's inconclusive. In the event that it was confirmed to be not a vernal pool or an ephemeral pool, the house location would not change. I think the applicant would like to clear a little bit more of the yard area, clear a little more of the overgrown wooded area, and also shift the deck. As you can see, it's on the side of the house. I think that would be shifted rotated to the back of the house, which would put it within that 75-foot buffer. But those would be the 2 minor changes that would be presented if it was shown to be a or not a vernal pool. But at this point, we're just under the assumption that it is, and we've designed the site to comply with the 50-foot no disturb and the 75-foot no build.
Joe?
No questions.
Al?
What flag was moved?
2B, I
Flag
believe.
B2 or 2B, excuse me.
Yeah, so you can see it's way down here on the smaller pond.
I'm looking for it.
If you look at the screen right now, you'll
I
see.
see it. No, I got it. I got it. How far did you have to move 2B?
18.
18 feet?
Same wetland scientist as the previous flag move?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's 2 flags, 18 and 19 feet?
The flat areas.
this,
Soils is what broke the.
this, interestingly enough, it's sort of topographically driven, and in the one area that I dug, there's kind of a slight depression, almost like a little swale that sort of channels water. There's no vegetation in it, so I could see where if one were following a topographic line around the pond, you would have followed the path that they did. I dug in it just because it was a low area behind the line, and
Which is what you're supposed to do.
right. And so I found the soils, I chased them back, and I moved the flag that distance. Like I said, it's where it's located, it doesn't really change the
All right,
proposal much.
that's the kind of stuff that, everybody has something that gets them aggravated in a filing. That's the thing that'll spin me right off the table.
Right.
All right?
Well, that's why I review them.
And if the same wetland scientist on both applications having a flag moved 18 and 19 feet respectively, I'm gonna start having a problem with that.
I mean, to be fair, I review plenty of their lines where I don't move any flags too, so.
Yeah, I understand. I've been around a while. I know.
I know.
I'm not, this is not my first rodeo. So I heard you say you are treating the ponded areas as if they were certified pools.
The design does comply with the 50-foot no disturb
Yeah,
and the
all right.
75-foot no build, so correct.
I think that's wise. I think if you're having somebody, if you were waiting for somebody to certify those, I would just treat them as if they are based on the evidence I'm hearing.
Yeah, and that's the assumption that we're under at this point.
I think if I were them, I'd just go fishing.
Yeah, I think they're still monitoring them for vernal pools, but for the filing, we're proposing it to comply with the 50-foot and the 75-foot.
And I'm agreeing with you. I'm telling you, don't change your mind.
Okay.
All right? Stand by, we'll get you in a few minutes.
Yeah.
All right, we're going to,
This is my first rodeo, so I don't know what the rules are.
Aye.
we can explain them to you, actually, we'll get to it in a second.
Let's get to
All right, that's my, those are my questions for right now. I may re-inquire if I think of something.
I have, it's been sticking in my craw the whole time, this application, and I've been assured by the administrator that there is no way that the back lot can be developed. There's no access to it, according to her.
Well, it's not that there's not access, there's no upland back there.
It's quite wet, nearly as far back as the site goes. It's,
Okay. I just know, because you asked for an ANRAD before, just incorporating this side of the pond and not the other side. So that kind of tells me that there is a potential of future development there.
We talked about that during the ANRAD, and I
I
thought we
just-
specifically excluded any determination
Yeah,
of the
and,
back.
but
end.
I just
Yeah.
don't think it makes any sense to flag the back part of the property if, A, the wetland goes off-site for a lot of it, and B, where it does sort of make a little, like they wouldn't spend the expense to go delineate the back if there's no reason to
If they
delineate
can
the
get a
back.
building lot out of it, then it is not an expense.
There's no contiguous buildable upland back there for,
This
or
house is being
frontage.
built to be sold, correct?
correct.
All right. All right, I'm agreeable with the project you have presented, but I guarantee you that that piece of land behind us is gonna be, somehow, some way, they're gonna get a building, they're gonna try to get a building
Well,
lot
it
out of it.
has to have access. It
Frontage.
has to have contiguous buildable upland.
Yeah.
We'll see.
It would
Most
require.
everything that has potential, we deal with it when it comes to us.
Yeah, when it comes in, yeah. When it
Okay,
gets-
Deb?
when and if it gets here.
Doug?
Am I wrong, though? In the ANRAD, we specifically stated the flags that were approved and made a statement as to we did not review anything beyond what we've.
Well, part of it was because they hadn't flagged the other small pond, so we just said that what was shown on the plan is all that was approved, and that there were other wetlands that had not been delineated. I
So
don't
it's
think
not
we
a-
went so far as to say that we
Yeah.
didn't delineate the back, or,
Nobody could ever construe our earlier action as an approval. There was no line back there. We're very careful to not do that.
Okay. All right, we have a motion, we need a motion.
What are we doing?
We had an
oh, no, we have a butter input, we have.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I have other recommendations if we're,
Okay.
The gentleman in the red sweater had a
Yep,
question.
Greg. Would you step up to the podium, please?
Really?
Honest?
We need microphones for
Yeah,
home.
this
We
is-
hear you fine.
Everybody wants to know who you are.
All right, I'll follow your rules.
Attaboy, thank you.
My name's Bill Hickey, and I'm in a butter. Just a few things. I do have one question before I make my comments. What's a vernal pool?
it supports habitat for critters that migrate to pools that don't have fish and that are usually ephemeral in that they don't have to disappear they hold water for a certain period of time, and certain critters use them for breeding. This is would be one of the largest vernal pools I've ever seen, if it turns out to be one.
Well,
But
my pond on
the
dries
smaller
up.
pond could be a vernal pool.
It
That's-
dries up, totally dry every summer.
Right,
the
which is what
definition-
usually happens to a
Without getting
vernal
into
pool.
the science of it, is the minimum, is it a half an acre foot?
No, you're talking about isolated land subject to flooding is the quarter acre
There's a
foot.
volume that it must
There
hold for a
isn't.
certain period of time. It can't go dry, but
It
it
can
has
go,
to be
no,
wet.
they most often go dry.
But they must hold
Hold
water
water
for a
for
period of
like
time.
2 months during the spring,
So
I think.
does it-
That's
so
the ephemeral pool.
The fact that they come and go is an important part.
Well, I guess my only point is if it's a vernal pool.
Your pool could
Is your
be.
setbacks from that?
Larger.
Larger,
But that's what they've
Yes.
sort of used those
which is
setbacks.
75 feet.
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
I got a copy of the plans. Sir, you're with,
Andover Consultants.
okay. On your plans, it says that there's no well within 100, no known well within 150 feet of the septic system, which is untrue.
He should
because-
address you. Sorry. Could you address the chair, not the applicant, so that everything needs to go to the chairman? Another
And
one of the
Who's
rules.
the chair? Lou?
Lou,
Okay. Lou, the plans say there's not a well within 150 feet of the septic system, which is untrue, because there's a well on my property. That's the first thing. And is there a setback for a septic system from a well? Which is?
I think it's 100 feet.
The important distinction there is the separation of the septic system from the well is Board of Health. So we are very careful to look at those charges that fall within our purview, which is strictly the conservation. So if what is shown here requires a separate permit from the Board of Health, and it's acted upon at this level, and we approve this plan with the septic system where it is, and the Board of Health asks the very question they should ask,
So do I
we as the
need,
neighbors well, and how is it being protected?
So
If
do I
it
need to
results in
go-
a change, they have to come back to us.
do I need to go to the Board of Health?
I would.
Yes.
Okay.
But that's, we wouldn't act on, all we care about is how far the septic system is from the wetland.
Got
I'm
it.
not saying that your well's not important, but it's not important to us as a board. It's important to the Board of Health very much.
Understood. This is probably not the right place for this, but I just want to go on record in front of Andover Consulting. You guys came out and marked the lot line on in between our properties, which is incorrect, and I have no confidence in where you marked it. And I will be disputing that because there was original pipes, and I bought it from Eugene Hodgson, and I have the original plan he handed to me where the pipes actually marked the lot line, and there was 3 of them, and they were ignored. All right, so your stakes are showing several feet to 10 feet, and at 635 feet, where the corner marker is visual there, that would show that you're 24 feet off at the end, which is like 7,000 square feet of land. So I will be disputing that, and because I think the way you marked it, then I start to question, are your plans even correct? But that's not something to be discussed with you guys.
Well, it's kind of important that if you are going to dispute a lot line,
I am disputing
it's
it.
important that you do it while the project is open.
The first time I knew about this project is when I got something in the mail.
Right, and that's, so you got to kind of get on it and get your surveyor or your engineer to do a competent survey of your property to see if there's disagreement.
So I'm going on record, and I will do that.
The record needs to come from an RPLS or a registered professional engineer. Right? While we appreciate your opinion,
Property lines have to be determined by a licensed surveyor, not an
Well,
engineer.
I understand that. I'm disagreeing because I bought it from the Hodgtons when it was separated.
That's a lot of.
The point is, I'm going on record, I do not agree with it. The only way I found out about this is because I got something in the mail, but of course, the state law says I'm supposed to get certified, so fortunately, I opened the letter, because you don't follow the state law.
Certificate.
State law says I'm either hand-delivered letter or a certified letter.
No, it allows for what are called certificates of mailing, which is basically, they just prove to us is what he's just provided to our administrative person that certifies that he sent the mail.
Okay, well, that's
So-
fine, but I'm being told to hurry up, but I just found out about this. So I'll honor, Mr. Chairman.
it's just a suggestion to you, in order to preserve your rights to dispute the lot line, you need to get a surveyor.
How much time do I have?
Well,
Let me say it differently. We have a plan that's submitted to us, stamped by a registered civil engineer, professional engineer, which bears their certification it's accurate. Whatever is on this plan, once it satisfies the wetland criteria that we have to evaluate, we will either approve with conditions, or not approve, or continue until we get something that we could approve with conditions. And at that point, we're not going to call into question anything outside of our purview. such
So
as
who
well
do
locations.
I go to dispute a
Your,
lot line?
your dispute would be through a survey of your own lot.
But who do-
And
who do I-
your surveyor will
who do I
give you a
bring that
recommend,
to?
you'll give a recommendation of how to proceed.
You have to get your land surveyed,
If you'll.
I know that, but who do I bring it to?
bring it to.
Bring it to land court. You bring it to your attorney, and your attorney's gonna know exactly what to do if it's in fact an issue. And your attorney will say that if they've, through some process, what to follow, would determine whether there was some error in the plan that was submitted to us or not. And you guys will handle that outside of this forum.
Okay, I
Our
get it.
forum is, if anything changes on this plan, they have to bring it back to us. And we get to reconsider the prior decision.
Okay.
But our decision
I
based,
get it.
once we've got all the information we need from the wetlands perspective, we're gonna close and issue a decision.
Right.
Okay, I'm good. May I just make a comment to this gentleman before I step off? Or should I do it on?
No, you do it outside, please.
All right.
Yep, good.
Yeah, I mean, that raises
State-
the
state your
question
name.
about the wells. I don't find a well on this plan. Is this lot, new house, going to be served by a well?
No, the well's on my property.
I understand you got a well on your property, but is this house here, the new one, served by a
Will not-
well
it
or
will not
by
be served by a well.
town water?
Town water.
Town water, okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, my name's James Murphy. I'm 60 Lions Way. I'm one of the abutters. And my question is, I took a walk around the property, and between the vernal pond and the big pond, behind it, I should say, behind it, before the stone wall, there's stockpiles of old tires. And is there any consideration of those being
Where are
removed?
the old tires? Out behind the pond?
Behind the pond, yeah.
Oh, I didn't go out behind the pond.
Yeah,
They haven't even gone before us for that.
okay.
On this property, you believe?
I believe it's on that property, yeah.
We're gonna have to look at that then.
I'll go.
I was wandering around. Yeah, so anyways, there's stockpiles. They're like from 1970s because they're white walls, early 70s.
Okay.
They've been there a long time.
You believe they're on the property?
I believe they're on the property or they're a butter.
Okay, I can head out behind the pond. I have not been down the path between the ponds.
All right,
Yeah.
we'll take a walk.
Okay.
Okay, that's
Thank
all.
you.
We'll take a walk and look at it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That does bring us to the issue too, would be what kind of monumentation you would be considering for the property, if you are thinking of approving it as proposed.
Well, I don't think it's ready to close tonight. so
Okay, so you're going to wait for the vernal pool
I
information?
think, yeah,
and,
I don't think we're ready to close at all.
Okay,
So,
and the new delineation.
so we need a motion to continue.
Second.
Is that all right with you? 2 weeks. Maybe, because we can't continue unless they say so.
He's asking for 2 weeks.
Request continues for 2 weeks. So we're going to update the revised flag that Jennifer had mentioned. We're also going to see if Norris can confirm that it is not a vernal pool.
If you're assuming that it is and you're carrying your setbacks that way, that's fine.
So the continuation would be to just
We
to
may-
revise
we-
the
if-
plan?
When it
to-
comes to certification of a vernal pool, this commission will likely want a third-party independent review of that.
I don't think that the applicant is going to certify a vernal pool. I think they're going to either confirm that it's not. But so if we continue and it's
If
not
it-
to look at the vernal pool, is it just to move the flag? Is that the one revision?
And, yeah, I mean, I think you should put the issue to rest. I mean, I don't think that big pond is a vernal pool. The other one
Yes,
may
I-
be, and I do think it's worth investigating that, but they should do it thoroughly. I mean, if they're not capable of doing it, then someone who can do this should
Differently,
go do it.
if they're proposing something that complies with vernal pool regulations, I think geometrically, we've got the ability to act upon it. But don't be surprised if we put as a pre-construction requirement that the vernal pool
Okay.
it should be closed out
Be
prior
certified.
to construction.
Or
Well,
not,
this is-
or treated as such.
This is the opportunity, I think, to go out there and see if it's a vernal pool. This is the
Yeah.
time of year,
I
so
mean, it's-
we'll,
Big night 2 weeks ago, they should be finding something.
And I'm not about to get involved in a urination contest, but, if there's a well on the abutter's property, and the abutter states there is and it's not shown, and if the abutter is not willing to let the surveyor on to show where that well is, I want to put that to rest and have some report back at the next meeting. So I think the applicants and his representative should confer with Mr. Hickey and identify where that well is, and ask the ultimate question, does your house hooked to municipal water. When the water main went by, did you connect to it, and is that well still being used?
Well, just to comment on that, right now I'm on town water.
I just want you to resolve that and come back with a report at the next meeting. I don't want to hear about it tonight.
The plan is to reactivate the well.
So we have continuous to May 8th. Need a motion?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Take a trip when you want.
Well, I mean, I got the shootout OK corrals right now. Kind of lost track of my concentration. You're supposed to help me out.
I'm trying. I really am trying.
And I'm trying too.
I'm trying to,
All right, next one, that's continued.
Trying to keep track of everything, Mr.
General
Chairman.
General business, 2420628, partial C request for Meadowwood, request to continue to 5/8.
So moved.
One second.
Just 1 second, please. Motion second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Now we have 2421697, modification request for 315 South Bradford Street.
Okay, my name's Michael Smolak, 315 South Bradford Street, North Andover. I'll state right up front, I'm a farmer, not an engineer. And when I started doing this project a couple of years ago, I thought it was going to be a whole lot quicker than it has ended. So I appreciate your patience. And as volunteers, I know sometimes this is a thankless job for you, but I appreciate your time and your patience with me. So the change I was proposing was to use recycled asphalt in place of regular asphalt to recoat the parking area that was already approved. And I had my engineer, Phil Henry, talk to Jen, and they had some communication back and forth about this. And it was requested that we ask for modification. So I brought the check in, and that's why I'm here.
Joe?
Mike, we love you. We love your admission that you're not an engineer. You're a damn good farmer and a good businessman, too.
Thank you.
I disagree with Mr. Henry's assertion that RAP functions like pavement, particularly with regards to plowing and sweeping. It doesn't. He's just not accurate. And the reality is those things that I think I remember that we debated very carefully in getting the project approved was maintenance being a lot of it. This makes that impossible in this particular area. So as much as I'd love to say, sounds like a great idea, not this time. So I'm sorry.
Hal?
I have no questions.
When this was given to me, I had spoken to Jen, and I said, it ain't gonna happen, because crushed wrap is a good alternative to all asphalt. However, it is not 100%, it's inaccurate what he said, that it's the same. It's apples and oranges and whatever you want to call it. You'd have to go through a whole new application process.
A
A whole new redesign to go through, because all the storm water will be different, because as you plow it, you'll change the grades where the water was supposed to go. I think it was a manhole directly behind one of the farm buildings, if I remember correctly. Huh?
Behind the farm stand?
Yeah, but there was a catch basin gonna be there. Once you start plowing that, you'll lose all grades altogether, because crushed wrap is good, I saw a lot of it, but it's not asphalt. Asphalt is supposed to be permanent, but it's not. But
One thing, won't let the water through.
and it won't let the water through.
And
So
if you
it's a
plow
whole,
and stuff like that, you'll dig it out
it's a whole different animal.
easily.
So if you want to go that route, that's fine, but you'll have to refile again. We can't.
Or amend the plan.
Or amend the
Doesn't he have a
plan.
permit to pave right now?
Yes.
So he can pave,
Oh, yes.
which isn't going to let the water through either.
No,
No, but
the water
it
through, it's a durable surface that can be swept and
drains-
plowed.
and
It
drains
was
the
It
water.
was pushing it, again, it goes back a couple of years, and my recollection, it was going up to a drip edge where the water was then able
Yeah,
to,
you
the
can-
snow was able to melt and soak in, It
And there was
was
only one
an
catch basin by a farm, by a building, I forget.
No, it all,
No, it's
it
way in
all,
the back.
Here, it goes
it
around the
all
perimeter.
goes to the left-hand side of the screen and into
Oh, that's right,
that
we
trench
eliminated
drain,
catch basin.
which goes back into a restored, yeah, there is some kind of a structure within
There
the,
is.
within the planted area.
I
Right.
think it was just a cleanup, right?
I'm trying to get to
I
that
forget
portion
what
of
it
it.
was
Because
called.
what's gonna happen is he's-
Proprietary
Oh,
separator
yeah,
is
it's
what
a
I was told.
proprietary.
What they're gonna do is they're
right.
gonna push
Rat
into
won't let
that,
that happen.
that grassy area and to plow, when they plow the snow, and it's gonna have all kinds of crushed wrap in it, and it'll contaminate that whole, so it won't function.
Yeah, I mean, that's not the way we plow. It goes more towards the animal area, but.
It'll end up there
Wherever it goes,
because
it's gonna be not in the parking lot.
it's not gonna be in the parking lot. And it's gonna change the grade because you're gonna come around, you're gonna come in, you're gonna come around, and you're gonna cut the grade that we designed, or that you designed, right through the middle, where the water's supposed to go. So, it's a total different animal. That's why you can do an amendment to the application, is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, it's gonna take, you'd have to redesign the whole, the stormwater you've proposed won't work with RAP.
Okay.
It's relying on the pavement, draining the water into a swale and out to that proprietary treatment system. If you use RAP, as they're telling you, it's gonna, as you plow it and people drive, the grades are gonna change. And in no 2 years will it ever be the same, and it may not always drain to where it's supposed to drain. So, for that,
It's not my business, but it's my experience to suggest that you look at the overall life cycle of the cost, and the cost of redesigning it, getting something that you think you get a permit on and go in and build it and then continue to maintain it after, it's just so much cheaper to pave it. And just do it right.
I've done both for years. And like Mr. Lynch says, the perpetual maintenance of this parking lot, in 5 years, it would have been cheaper to pave it. So you're not, at least if you get a decent paving contractor, it'll be done and you're done with it. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If you go the root crush wrap, it's got to be maintained every year, it's got to be regraded every year. You're going to have to pull everything out of where it doesn't belong. You don't need another headache.
Well, I've got plenty, as I
So,
sit
I
here
mean,
tonight, for sure.
it's your project, it's your property, you do what you want. But I personally, in the long run, you're going to save probably 50% going now doing crush wrap, but you're going to pay in 100% in 5 years.
Okay.
Yep. Doug?
No more comments.
Okay.
You know, in closing, can I make one statement, too? I've been in North Andover for, I don't know whether you're older than me or I'm older than you, Al, but it's pretty close.
We won't go there.
And you said you lived here.
Lou or me? Who you looking
Hey,
at?
I was looking at
easy.
you. But, and I'll correct you, you said you lived in North Andover your whole life. And what
Almost.
I say not yet.
Not yet. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
But also to Jen's credit, I have to say, I've worked with her for quite a few years, and there's no finer public servant that I have dealt with in North Andover. She has been
Thanks,
just
Mike.
terrific. And not just from the standpoint of her knowledge and her expertise, but also her willingness to go the extra mile to help people who are just farmers sometimes, too. And rules and regulations do change, and us farmers, Al knows because he's here.
We're going to miss her, right? You've heard.
Well, we all will, but we know
Thank
where
you.
she's going. But I wanted to get on record with something good to say about somebody who deserves
you.
it. Good.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, thank you. And
we all love her.
well, a lot of that going around. Thank you.
All right,
And,
so what
we'll
is your-
talk
what is
to
your-
Phil about it.
Do you want to vote
You
or
can
do you
either
want to
withdraw it,
do you
or
want to
withdraw
withdraw it?
deny it.
I don't, like I said, I'm a farmer, I don't know.
Wanna
I'd
continue?
wait till the next rainstorm,
yeah,
so.
why don't you continue it and go talk to Phil? He may choose to withdraw it, at which point, if you were to do an amendment, you could use the fee toward that, whatever, just decide, and then we'll discuss. So
right,
we'll
so
continue.
Okay.
We need a motion to continue.
Got it.
Second.
All those in favor say aye?
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay,
Not
okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Mike.
Good night.
Thank you.
You were patient waiting this long.
That's
I'm pretty sure there's two of us.
Next one is, no, you get 242, 1464, 350 Winthrop Ave. What's that? Is that the freezer?
The dairy cooler they never built, so motion to issue a COC for an invalid OOC.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. Next one is 242, 1387, 116 Mount Ridge Road.
Oh, yeah. Hi, Alex. Haven't seen Mr. Caruso for a few years, but he, a number of years ago, redid 116 Marble Ridge Road with a permit and an order of conditions, and submitted for a certificate of compliance and submitted an as-built plan, but there was monitoring left to be done on the no disturbance zone. He had some things that died, if I recall, too.
We needed to plant 5 trees
Yep.
in the non-disturb zone,
Right. So
which we did.
Yep, so the trees were planted, but there was a monitoring, and then after the house sold, we sort of forgot about it until we resurrected the project when the patio was an issue. So that said, something that doesn't happen very often, but the developer is back to seek his certificate of compliance and close this out and get his bond back. So I've monitored the plants. I think one of them, I think only one sort of didn't quite make it, or part of it got lopped off. There was one tree. But the area is well vegetated. We have plenty of photos. The wall is installed. The rest of the site is in compliance, and I recommend a full and final COC.
No questions.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous. You're all set.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next one is,
I have to recuse
okay.
on this one.
You recuse yourself.
So if the record would reflect that I'm not participating in this, thank you.
242, 1314, 1600 Osgood Street.
And we took a few, I was out there.
Who's that?
Yeah, he was hiding in the corner.
He got in early when nobody was paying attention.
You know certain things slither in.
I see how this is going to go. I can hold my own. I finally made it up to the table, folks. Thank you. Again, for the record, my name is Mike Howard from Epsilon Associates. I'm here tonight on behalf of Aussie Properties, also known as 1600 Osgood Street LLC. I've submitted a request for a certificate of compliance for an old project that dates back almost 15 years now. The order of conditions that was issued by the commission in 2005 was for 1600 Osgood Street, which the commission is very familiar with. It covered work associated with an expansion of the front parking lot. Apart from a drain pipe connection to an existing head wall and some buffer zone plantings, all the work described in the notice of intent and referenced in the order was outside the 100-foot buffer zone. Majority of the work, again, was construction of a parking lot and improvements to the stormwater management system. Conducted a site visit with Jen on April 3rd. Purpose of the site visit was for both of us just to get up to speed on this old project, review the site together, and reach consensus on what information would be necessary for the commission to consider and process a certificate of compliance request. So subsequent to that site visit, I did several things that are reflected in the package submitted to the commission. I asked Marchand Associates to update their stamped and signed as-built plan. I had an as-built plan from them from 14 years ago, but obviously it's a bit dated, so they revisited the site and issued it again. I also had them reissue a new PE certification letter that's included in the file. We worked with Meridian Associates. They do a lot of engineering services for Aussie Properties at the site. We worked with them because there's a requirement in number 52 of the order conditions to inspect and maintain the stormwater management system. I had records in my files showing that the system was maintained regularly up until a point, 10 years ago, but I had nothing after that. Jen had nothing in her files, nor did my client. So before we did anything, we obviously inspected the system and conducted all the maintenance that the commission would expect to see. And there's some photos in there showing what we did. But it was everything you would think of: cleaning out catch basins, inspecting the infiltration system, cleaning out the stormwater, sweeping the parking lot, all things of that nature. A couple other,
Photos of the inspection report?
Yep.
yes, that's included in there too, Joe.
We didn't print everything for them, so.
Thank you.
But the order required an affidavit, if you will, from Aussie Properties, just affirming that they'll continue to mow the upland meadow that borders the wetlands out there. Commission wanted to keep it in a meadow environment over time. They've been doing that. I had a letter from them from a long time ago. I had them reissued again today, so it's current. That's in the file. There's a ton of markers out on the site, the old metal poles, but none of them have, at least in this location, North Andover's current, wetland markers. So I acquired 20 of those from Jan as per the order, and we reinstalled those. I did that myself. A lot of trash and debris were picked up. Aussie Properties hired their landscaping crew to go out there. I gave them some direction about where we wanted the trash picked up, and they did that work for me leading up to the submittal. And then lastly, there's a good photo here on the screen now. That's the head wall that was always present out there. The pipe on the right was where the stormwater system tied into that head wall through this order of conditions. The vegetation on the photo on the left is the area that was restored with plantings over time. It's thick as a jungle in there. The culvert and head wall and the stream to which it discharges in was obviously overgrown with vegetation. There was also a fair amount of silt that had built up in that location. So with Jen's permission and in accordance with the order conditions, I supervised the removal of that sediment. We used a vac truck. We exposed the pipes again.
Can we go back to that picture?
Yep.
Do you mind? Rather than me remembering where to go, is that an outlet head wall? It
Yeah.
is, I think, right?
Yes.
So with all the
Inlet,
sediment
it's coming in,
that's found,
stream's flowing.
where's that sediment coming from? Are they not cleaning the catch basins enough? Are they not sweeping the parking lot enough? Are they using too much material to
It could be all the above. The catch basins were not in that bad a shape. There was only a couple that were, needed some cleaning. The others were in pretty
Because
good
that's
shape.
exactly, I mean, you've been in this business forever.
Yeah.
You always want to protect up water column as best you can, and by the time you get to that last discharges, it really, all those other measures ought to have failed in order to see an impact.
What I can't remember, Joe, is how much sediment was there at the inception of the project and how much accumulated over time. I don't remember that part of it. What I can tell you is we thoroughly cleaned it out, and we actually found, Joe, that was never identified on any of the plans or the permit that we did before. If you can sort of see it on my right, there's also a small head wall that comes into, a small pipe that comes into the head wall that was completely buried, but we kept cleaning it out. We discovered that. We opened that one up too. It seems to come from one catch basin up in the parking lot somewhere. I don't think that's been functioning for decades.
So I guess the bottom line of that is the discharge has been identified, the silts have been cleaned out, and the pipes and the structures up above that have all been cleaned out, so.
Yes.
So long as they continue to do that, we should never see the impact down here.
Right, and that's the key thing, and obviously I reinforced that in the letter. I think maintenance is prescribed in the order of conditions, but of course, it's important to do it over time. This is one way to keep folks accountable, and that's why we're here tonight, and I, of course, made every effort to make sure all these things were done. One thing we did also find, Joe, when we were removing the sediment with the vac truck in there's actually an old asphalt apron that was buried under this pavement, kind of an
They did in the
antiquated
60s.
antiquated design, yeah. So it's been there, I've never seen that in all the years I've flagged out here.
Early 60s.
Yeah, so it's got a long history of stuff out there. I did have some back and forth with Jen today. I know she's been reviewing the submittal, and she and Ben had some questions on inverts and whatnot. I won't speak for Jen, but that's kind of where I'm at, and Jen, I'll turn over to you.
Yeah, I mean, given that the project was largely outside the buffer zone without, Ben went to review, as we always do when we receive a drainage project, just that all the inverts and outlets match up, and usually you can go through about, the first 5 and sort of know if you're going to have a problem. Ben went through like 15. And the problem became that when the plan was submitted, it was submitted with a nice table of all the inlets and outlets and catch basins and the rim heights and all that. And when it was given to us in its as-built form, they're just all on the plan.
Reported on the plan, yeah.
Yeah, and so Ben was trying to reconstruct the table, and was about 2/3 of the way through it, and when I said.
Just the catch basins.
Yeah, so we sort of stopped. We had one that was maybe a foot off, but the majority of them were within, the half-foot sort of plus or minus. So with that said, we had requested, we didn't know if it was available, if Marchanda had done such a table, but we didn't get very far with that today. So the question is, things have been out there and functioning for 14 years, whether you want that information, need that information. We just wanted to point out, we tried to have it all mapped out, but it was taking an inordinate amount of time, and today was a very busy day. So that's the only sort of out there thing that we have.
There's one photograph in a series of 3 here that I imagine came from staff and wasn't on that slideshow.
We took that today, just because.
Has Mike seen this yet?
Yeah, but I don't think there's anything in there.
I'm looking at the outlet control structure out of what looks to be a retention area.
Yes.
Do you know, is that really functioning as a single small orifice with an overflow?
Yes.
Not a battery of
Correct.
pipes?
Yeah. It's got an interesting infiltration system, too. I don't remember, none of it.
Doesn't seem like it should work.
It's got an odd system, but it's been functioning for a long time. The system's actually in pretty good shape. The basin doesn't get a lot of water. It does have this kind of neat low flow channel that does
And that's
function.
within that
Yeah.
low area,
Correct.
that good as a stormwater area?
Yeah. It's a massive basin. In the field, it looks like it's way oversized, which I think was just because, it had to match Route 125 on one side and the parking lot on the other, and the basin was just.
Probably just has ample storage area.
Plenty of
and
storage.
literally can let the water pass in what looks to be like a 4-inch orifice.
Yeah, it's like that. But I supervised all the work, all the inspection work, and the maintenance. There's a ton of photos we took, and I reinforced to my client the need to meet the permit requirements going forward after the certificate of compliance is issued. And to the extent I have control over those things, I'll certainly advise my client, accordingly. That's it.
It look good to me. Plus, it might be a moot point, I'm sure it's a matter of public record, that the property itself is going to become very large, so everything's going to have to be, hopefully to use you, everything's going to have to be redone. They're talking about building a 3.5 million square foot manufacturing building, employing 1,500 people, and that's coming. They're going to have a special town
If it
meeting.
wasn't public record, it is now.
Pardon me?
If it wasn't, it is now.
No, it was presented at
It
the
is.
Board of
It
Selectmen
is.
last
I-
night.
They issued a press release yesterday.
It's in its infant stages, but it'll pretty much make this all moot because.
Yeah, they need the compliance in order to move forward to the
Right,
next
right.
step.
Exactly. So they gotta get a special town meeting and whole 9 yards, but they'll be coming before us again.
Sure, understood.
So, no, what you've done is you've done an excellent job. And, we're working on conditions that we don't even know what's coming. So it makes it difficult, but you've done your job regardless of what happens.
I think you could do no more than you've already done in, less than full attention to maintenance on a recurring annual basis and submitting reports made this cleanup effort a little more complicated, but as long as you've driven that point that, should that other project, God forbid, not go forward, it becomes incumbent upon us to make sure that your client continues to maintain it and get us information.
I mean, this stuff is 60 years old. It looks pretty good.
Not all of it. I mean.
Well, quite a, that's an old structure.
But you said at some point they were, not they, because it's been different owners at different times, but, at one point they were very diligent in providing maintenance, and at some point it simply stopped. And the record, at least the record has a hole in it.
Yes, and we, for almost a decade and a half now, I've been involved in those maintenance plans and whatnot. And to ease your mind a little bit, Lou, I'm confident that if that project you're describing goes forward, I will be involved in that and coordinating these sorts of things with the commission.
Good.
Okay, I'm all set.
All right, I'm all set.
All set.
Motion?
To issue the full and final COC.
So we're satisfied with this table, seems to be minor in the comparison of the overall scheme of things.
Well, and it's been function, after
Yeah.
14 years, if one of the rims is off by a foot, I'm not really sure.
I think it's gonna matter.
Didn't at Bear Hill.
Yeah, I know. We won't go there.
So moved.
All right, all those in favor say aye?
Aye.
No
Opposed?
second.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, okay. Joe seconds.
All right, well said. Thank you,
If I
Mike.
could, Mr. Chair, now that the commission's taken action on this, tonight's the night to pay kudos to Jen. I would also like to attest that North Andover's, of course, has been lucky to have Jen for all these years. I think she's North Andover's greatest conservation agent.
I know for a fact she was even better than you. And you were
A lot
great.
better than you, but-
And
No, let's not throw him under the
she
bus.
was, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And I hired you, and
She is-
she's better than you.
Yes, you did, but she was always very fair, tough, but followed the rules and regulations. And Jen, I really do appreciate working with you for all these years. Thank you for helping me do my job better and for, guiding my clients through the process. So thank you very much. Thank you, folks.
Thank
I'll
you.
be talking to you down the road. Thanks.
Thank you.
Night, Mike.
Okay, next one is,
Be kind enough to
I
send
think you
Mr.
can-
Manzi back in?
I think you can, there's no one here for any of the others, so I think it's probably best
all
to,
right, so we'll go to, well, good, then I'll leave. I'll
to
stay.
deal with the, oh, I see what you're saying. If you want, if you want to move
We gotta
through
wait
them
for Al
quickly.
anyways.
Well, Al's back, so you can leave.
Okay, I'm gonna stay. I like to listen.
Okay, then I would just recommend moving on to 1210, and we can deal with those matters.
Go to 242-1692 enforcement letter. It's on the bottom, yes.
Excuse me.
You got the hammer.
1210 Osgood.
And Lou, you're recusing
So the record
yourself,
reflects
right?
some, okay, thank you, Jamie.
Jamie
I
knows.
shouldn't, I know I shouldn't ask, but I like to be sure. The Attorney General's kind of fussy about this stuff.
So there's sort of two things in front of you tonight. We continue the discussion about the seepage area and the testing and analysis that's been done out there. And in the interim, we had a violation for dewatering. At this point, dewatering has sort of been administratively approved, and the dewatering area is conferred with between the environmental monitor, myself, and the acting chair. When we had this violation, talking with the acting chair, we decided that a cease and desist and an enforcement order were necessary at this point, and that any future dewatering activities needed to be approved by the commission. So those two things are in front of you this evening.
That's an accurate representation of what happened.
Mr. Chair, if I may, before I turn it over to the experts, just a quick overview of the materials you received. I know that they're cumbersome and there's a lot there. The 24-page document you have is a response action plan to address both of the issues that Jen covered, both of the enforcement orders, the one dated March 29th, 2019, which is the seepage issue, and the enforcement order that was entered last week, April 18th, 2019, which was the discharge. And that report is basically broken down in two parts to address both those enforcement orders. The first part is the most recent enforcement order, and it starts with background leading up to the April 18th incident. And I just want to be the first to take full responsibility for that incident on behalf of NRP. And, it was a result of human error, but that's no excuse. We take full responsibility, and I hope by our sheer presence here tonight, by the materials that we've generated for your review, that you see how seriously we take this. And despite, dewatering up to 100,000 gallons a week and having very few issues and receiving compliments from the environmental monitor, we do take this seriously, and we proposed in that report measures to help us ensure that this won't happen again. And that includes hiring a full-time employee to monitor dewatering activities, give that employee training on dewatering activities and on operation of frac tanks, and also incorporating reporting logs that we will make sure that are filled out on a daily basis and reviewed by management. So those measures are detailed in that 24-page document, and Joe will cover that in more detail. The second half of that document covers the first enforcement order from March, and that's the seepage issue. We also have a 500-page document that's the report from Sanborn Head on the testing results. And the summary, which Vern will cover in further detail, is essentially that there's a calcium carbonate material that's seeping through the wetlands in a localized condition. And in our 24-page document, the shorter document, we've outlined and proposed a dual-layered approach for addressing that sediment. And that's, again, will be covered in further detail. But step one is installing a temporary well point to collect the calcite sediment before it reaches the wetlands and to treat it in the frac tanks. And the second is to expedite our paving plan to make sure that the site gets under a binder as soon as possible. And we think that those two steps will significantly improve conditions. And I welcome questions and comments, and I'll probably defer to the experts to take it from here. But thank you for your time. We appreciate it.
You have the,
Take notes as I go.
you have the floor.
Good evening. For the record, Joe Pesnola from Hancock Associates. With regards to the recent discharge, it was kind of twofold. Number one, not enough residency time in the frac tank for the sediment to settle out, and the filter bag hadn't been changed, hadn't been monitored and changed frequently enough. So those two things led to sediment being discharged to the buffer zone, to the discharge point, for it was about a 3 to 6 hour period. So first, we're going to get in there and clean that sediment out, and we've proposed a plan in the area to do that, hand rake the areas. It's not an enormous amount of material, so it all can be done by hand and removed. And that'll be overseen by the environmental monitor, Williams Inspiragus. As far as moving forward so that this doesn't happen again, NRP will have a full-time dedicated employee that will just be dealing with dewatering. That employee will be fully trained on how to run the frac tanks, how to ratchet down the flow or stop the flow if they're not achieving the sediment removal, and how to monitor and the frequency that the dirty bags have to be changed. We've presented within the document that you've got a log that employee will fill out with regards to the monitoring of that dewatering, with regards to daily records, the hours of dewatering, the gallon of water that was treated, and the visual inspections that are happening every 15 to 20 minutes, during the dewatering process. So it's a dramatic increase in the oversight of that with single point person that's going to be in charge of all of that. We've also presented a modified or a enhanced dewatering plan showing the location of the frac tanks and the locations of the discharge points. Previously, the north one was previously approved, and I think Jen and Greg Hockmuth met on site to look at the south one that's over by the clubhouse, as far as that as a secondary discharge point, with a second frac tank to handle that area that's also got water in it, or water issues that need to be addressed. At the same time, we're getting the drainage system all installed. Hancock has been out there several times a week to inspect bed bottoms and the ongoing installation of those systems, and that will help to accelerate the base course paving of an area, which will definitely stabilize things and have the more control over sediment on site. So at this time, we want to kind of do this section by section, and I'd be happy to answer any questions with regards to that, but we do want, we are seeking permission to restart the dewatering activities as they're necessary with this plan in place.
So I'll just, in order for us to authorize restarting dewatering conditions, we have to have confidence in your ability to operate it correctly, which, I mean, even an optimistic guy would have to say up to this point, there's a lack of confidence in the operation. So I guess you've got to convince us why we should have confidence in your ability to successfully dewater and to prevent runoff going off-site.
No, it's understandable with regards to that, and that's why we've made the commitment to have this dedicated employee on site who's going to.
You feel that that's the issue, that there was there was not adequate supervision of the dewatering? Is that what we're hearing?
Yeah, I think again, we've done hundreds of thousands of gallons of dewatering over the months and months that we've been doing it successfully. So this is a human error issue, and it all comes down to accountability and supervision of that operation. And if you've got an employee who's got multiple tasks that they have to take care of over the course of a day, then there's attention may have gotten away from that frac tank and discharge point. Here we've got in the new plan a dedicated employee that again, he's going to be monitoring this the entire time that dewatering is happening with one and only focus, and that's clean water being discharged.
Okay. Do you want to address the dewatering first?
Unless I missed it, and I don't think I did. I still want to know where we are with where is the property line? And I know that there's been inroads made to tracking down and identifying the owner and the property manager on behalf of the owner, because that was kind of hanging out pretty strong over the past couple meetings.
And that's another fair question. The abutting property owner on 25 Commerce Way, I believe is the address, it's managed and owned by an out-of-state company. We've tracked them down in San Francisco. We've then tracked down their property manager in Texas, and we've been in contact. They've asked questions. We've given them information, and it's been an exchange of information. There's been no objection to us doing testing or the eventual cleanup, just at this point questions. And it's been a free flow of information, emails, letters, phone calls.
So that whole question, and your answer to that question, is driven by there was some uncertainty as to where the line was between what was the client's property and they could go in and start doing action on without any permission, but recognizing that there was more than a likelihood that it crossed over into the abutters property, and ultimately, it's gonna require either permission for you guys to do it, or we're gonna require them to clean it up, and so, I mean, we're gonna get them to probably work with you. But I think what we mentioned 2 weeks ago, at least if it wasn't 2 meetings ago, 4 weeks ago, I think Al went so far as to say stake the line, quote unquote.
Boundary line
Show
survey is
me,
generally
show
marked,
me
yeah.
where it is, so my employees on site know where that is.
And that was done.
That has been done,
And we
okay.
provided the Alta survey the next day, as was requested as well.
Okay. So the subject matters were the migration of material off-site and the eventual cleanup of that, the dewatering problems that they had that caused us to issue a cease and desist. And then eventually, we're going to hear, I think, on the analysis of what was coming up out of the ground.
I think it was a good approach to separate two separate issues, because they really are separate.
The dewatering is the big deal right now, Joe, because it was my opinion that we should just stop it, because I didn't see a solution to it that was happening then and there. I wanted them to. And so far, what I'm hearing is the solution is a full-time employee. I'm not sure that that's the complete solution, but that's what I've heard so far.
I'm not sure it is either, but I'm not sure it's not. I think sometimes telling a site that's vulnerable to stop a certain activity could have the potential of magnifying the impact in the long run. So I'm more inclined to say that we be satisfied with the measures they put in place until the next violation. The confidence level diminishes with time. Putting somebody whose sole function, and I don't want to use the phrase, but I think it's almost dedicated and sole function mean the same to me, on this endeavor is a healthy thing. Person who works for another, who works for superintendent, who can simply tap him and grab him and say, I need you to do this other item, it's only going to take half hour. Well, it takes 3 hours, and that time, the frac tank failed. I could see that happening, and putting a person on it who's dedicated to that function makes me feel better.
And just
Will
add-
it be enough? I don't know, but I'm willing to say, I'm willing to give it a try.
We'll submit, we could do it on a weekly basis and submit the copies of the logs of this employee's inspections and operation of the dewatering. That will again include what were the hours that dewatering happened, what's the approximate gallonage, and what was done for inspections, how when the dirty bags are changed.
Didn't we require
Monitoring
the
it.
monitor to be on site more frequently so that,
Yeah, and we were getting daily monitoring from the environmental monitor.
so in spite of having
So
an
he was the one
environment-
who alerted us to this issue.
Well, that's been happened every time. All the alerts have come from the monitor, which is why,
When a system breaks down during an operation, unless you're literally living at it all the time and watching it, 2 or 3 hour impact can look devastating.
well, it is, I mean.
So if that person, if that, I mean, I hate to say it, if the employee has been shouldered with that responsibility, he is, as a representative of the developer, is taking sole responsibility for his performance, there will be no excuse. That's his job.
Well, I'm not
And
willing.
it's the
I'm not willing-
project's job.
I'm not willing to shift the responsibility from the company and the builders and the people you see here. I'm not willing to shift the responsibility to some operator of a frac tank.
But he works for them.
He
But he
work
works for them.
but,
What I'm saying is if I were to agree that this is worth trying, and I'm leaning that way,
Yeah.
then what they themselves have done is removed any excuse for any future violation.
And I just want to be clear that
Oh
we're
my
not.
God, it's starting to get turbid. Shut it down. You yourself cease and desist. We don't have to issue it. And if they
have-
don't shut it down,
you have
then
more-
there's going to be an
You have more
hell to
confidence
pay.
than I do, but I want to hear more.
I just want to clarify, we're not just going to pull someone and put them on the frac tank. There's going to be training involved. This is going to be not only a dedicated employee, but a dedicated trained employee that's focused on this thing and this one thing only. So I just want to make sure that wasn't missed either.
So if,
I heard all those words. this is a highly specialized skill that, monitoring situations and understanding more than just simply watching the tank is something this person needs to be cognizant of. I hope I'm leaning towards giving them another chance with the full statement that, son of a gun, there is no more excuse.
Okay, so I hear you. I hear you.
Training or not, I mean, it's their responsibility.
See, this reminds me of the bulldozer story at North Andover Estates 30 years ago.
Just remember the same exact one.
When we had a wonderful organization in front of us.
I didn't mean to, was the answer.
I'm just saying, the weakest link, okay? So what we're saying here is the weakest link is going to be somebody that they're going to task, which I'm hoping that there's going to be somebody competent that's going to be tasked. Let me just see if there's any other questions down here before we dominate the conversation. Deb?
Okay, I'd like to know who is going to be training this dedicated individual, and will they have the proper licenses? And the second point is, once this dedicated individual is trained, how long is it going to take for that person to come up to speed to understand the full implication of all of the monitoring and all of the job that entails this whole project?
Well, two points. There is no license per se for someone that's doing something like this.
How do you know they're trained properly?
Well, we have to engage the professionals, and in this case, it's the supplier of the frac tank who has the personnel that understands how the frac tanks work, and they support that through, and already have supported that through testing of the sediment, to understand what flocculants need to be added to the tanks and how the tank functions.
Let me ask this question to help the training aspect and the qualification aspect. And I don't rent enough frac tanks, but some companies that I've engaged can either rent me the tank, or they can rent me a tank with an operator. Which option was available and which did you choose? Because you can get these tanks with their operator, who know exactly how to do it. Was that offered, and did you rule that out, or was it not offered at all?
I don't believe it was offered to come with an operator.
We could certainly look into that. We were also considering hiring a separate consultant that Sanborn Head has worked with in the past that only focuses on dewatering construction sites to provide the training. So those are two, I think, plausible options that we can look into.
So, to Al's concern and then Deb's supporting it, the ramping up of a well-intentioned employee who's been saddled with a great responsibility and also given a great opportunity to prove himself has a hell of a burden to shoulder by taking on this, which with a lot at stake. And I think for us to consider lifting it and the confidence concern that Al raises, I think we need to know right off the bat that we've got a competent, fully trained, capable person operating the system that we're about to consider lifting a cease and desist or not on. And I think if we fall short of that, I don't think we're prepared to have that fully satisfied confidence to do that. So I think we need you to explore that.
And to Joe's point too, the onus is on this one individual. Is there going to be a backup? And is this operation 24/7? So is this person going to sleep there for the whole time?
Dewatering doesn't occur 24/7.
Okay. Just specific times then?
With respect to the backup, that's a valid question. If your operator can't make it in for some reason, family emergency, not feeling well, gets hurt on the job, the backup is a valid point. Otherwise, there'll be no dewatering. I'm sure you understand that.
Yeah.
So in order for you to keep the project moving, which is what your goal is, and our goal is not just to help you keep the project moving, but to make sure that we do no harm in the process. And I know you understand what I mean when I say that. Because I'm looking at some of the photographs that have been submitted as exhibits. And I see double rows of hay bales and a silt sock, and I still see migration over, under, around, and through. It's I know you understand when I tell you that's a problem, and I hate to beat a dead horse here, but when we say we're losing confidence, we really truly are. So the frac tank operation, you should take the maximum effort.
Absolutely.
Not the minimum effort. Don't just hire, you could hire a very good person that has excellent credentials and good work ethic, but maybe you ought to consider going above and beyond that and make sure that the frac tank you have has the capacity and the ability to handle what you're giving it. Make sure you have the right size frac tank. Make sure you have the right size frac tanks, plural if you need to, and perhaps you want to have a manufacturer's rep running the program instead of having your own person doing it. Just like when you originally came to us with the original stormwater system that came with a factory rep to clean and install those. I think there's a lot to be said for that as well. Give us confidence. I'm not saying we don't trust you. I'm just simply saying it's trust but verify.
Understood.
And I think that's where I am. I sense the rest of the commission is there. Let me just inquire down the, are you good?
I'm done.
Doug? Doug's good, so I'll go back to Joe, and if we don't have anything else to say on this.
So let's digest the frac tank situation while we hit the next piece of the discussion, and in the end, we can go back and decide them separately.
All right. So I guess we're looking at a demonstration by the applicant that the tanks that they're using have the capacity for the site, because we didn't require that in the order of conditions. We never considered that, because is there only one size frac tank, or are there multiple sizes?
No, you go to multiple tanks.
So we would want to know, I think we would want to know that the tank system that you're using has the capacity for the water that you're offering to it. And I think that we would want to know that the operator of the tank.
I want to leave anything, I think that we specify turbidity unit at discharge as a maximum level, and that it be controlled upon discharge and contained for the inadvertent cleanup that does have to happen, and that all factors take into account, the number of frac tanks, the way they're configured and the sizes of them, the way they're baffled, whether there's need to introduce flocculant in it to help with the precipitation of sediments. All of those things all come into play, which results in what are you trying to filter out, what's the speed at which you're pumping, what's the volume of water in the residency. There's so many factors involved. I just simply want to say, you shall not discharge turbid water, and come up with a number that can be measurable. Some NTU unit, I forget what it is, I'm afraid. But there's the DEP standard of what can be discharged from a construction site, and it's pretty low.
Having, it's usually, the way they're conditioned is a certain percentage above baseline, but, I mean, we're discharging from turbid ponds. So, I mean, you could do a baseline of the water, the receiving water, I suppose.
There's not going to be much turbidity in that at all, so I would come up with a threshold, an NTU threshold, and then just to stick to that. And I think
how they achieve that is totally up to that professional and that operator. Because they vary during time.
So I think that
again, what is it though, like 10, 20? I mean, where
I don't know what the numbers
are
for the table here, but I could certainly research it, but.
I think that that's a reasonable approach. I think that's the way you got to do it.
And it's a fairly simple.
Because otherwise we're being subjective, and I'd rather not be.
Yeah, there's a fairly simple method to field test that.
Well, yeah, but right, so, but what are we using as the baseline that you're not going to exceed?
We have to establish that. I know Joe said that there may be a DEP guidance on it.
No, there isn't. So that was something that they were going to put into the construction general permit, and they didn't. So.
Again, I'm not even sure it's the right
Yeah,
correlation.
but there used to be a number out there with something like 250, but you don't want to be discharging anything like that.
My recollection goes back to 40 NTUs discharge from the site on storm events of not more than 2 inches within 24 hours. That's what they use from a stormwater perspective. Now, if the storm event is irrelevant, is 40 NTUs the right number, first of all? And if it is the right number, is it the right number in this instance? There's a number out there, and we can get that from Pam Merrill.
May I jump in just real briefly? I just want to circle back. And the reason why we proposed what we did is we saw what happened, what caused the issue, and we sought to seek out a solution to make sure that didn't happen. And what caused that issue was not a failure of the system. It was not an undersized frac tank. It was not lack of flock logs. It was someone who didn't do their job. And that is what we are trying to propose here to avoid. All your points are well taken, and we will.
And that's why I say the performance standard is only what the discharge is. Whatever, whether it's the operator or the tank or introduction of flocculant, that's almost all immaterial. Because if anything breaks down in the end, it damn well not better exceed the turbidity count coming out. That's the only performance that needs to be met.
Coming out of what, though? Out of the tank or through the dewatering bag, or?
Through the dirt bag. Dirty bag, I guess is a better word now, right?
All right. I hear them, they're saying the whole thing is operator error. They're saying they have the correct tank, they have the correct system, they have everything correct. They're saying the operator dropped the ball. So we got to go to, then you got to have more than one operator.
Okay.
Because the guy that's operating the tank is going to want to take breaks, he's going to want to take a day off, the kids are going to have a soccer game, whatever it is, there's always a reason why somebody doesn't come to work. There's a million reasons. And the day that they don't come to work, understand this, if you have one operator and the day he doesn't come to work, you're out of business.
That's fair.
I mean, that's simple, and that's not a final, that's observation.
And hopefully they're trained together so they know what to do.
And I mean, as this thing evolves in conversation, I think it would be reasonable that this commission expects that at the beginning of every daily shift, that the operator of that facility tank report their presence to somebody, whether it's our environmental monitor or to our office, every single day that I am on site and I am the person.
No, I think that's mandatory. Again, if you want us to have confidence in your ability to operate, and if you're telling us you can get it done but for the operator, then you've just set the bar on the operator and the supervision of the operator and everything that goes with it.
Understood.
You know, it's not just the operator. He's got to answer to somebody. Somebody's supervising. There's got to be a grown-up in charge somewhere. And that's where it's going to fall.
Understood.
You know, and I like the idea of logging on every day. We need to know. I think the monitor needs to know.
And we can incorporate that into the log that we attach to your.
But that information needs to get to us.
Okay.
I don't want our staff to come looking for it.
That's fair.
Any other suggestions down here on that? Actually, on the contrary, if we don't hear, our staff is going to be out there looking for where the hell he is. Why didn't we get it? And if we do get who the report is, I would expect that, as a matter of compliance certification for our own comfort, is we're going to make spot checks and show up on site, and the operator better be there.
And I'm going to expect that from the environmental monitor as well,
Yeah.
all right, because we can't put the whole burden on staff. We have to have confidence in the monitor.
Understood.
I do. They have been outstanding so far. So, Jennifer, do you have anything you want to offer on that?
Nope.
Do you agree with the position that we're taking so far?
Yep.
We're putting restrictions that are going to be
Yep.
reviewed daily. Okay. I'd like to talk about the photographs of these erosion controls. I'm not exactly happy with the way they're constructed. I'm a big fan of staking bales on their side and burying silt fence in. I'm looking at a double row of hay bales with a silt sock, but there's nothing to really stop migration.
We've asked them to stop trenching silt fence down as they progress out, because what was happening was they're actually stirring up more sediment, they're disturbing ground, and that we've been finding that sediment was then the people in and out to dig the silt fence in is causing disturbance, and then it's not even the water that's being discharged that's turbulent, it's the water that's running down the site from the disturbance to set up these rows of
Make
things.
sure I understand what you just said.
So what would you rather have?
We have material that's already migrated and gotten into
Yes.
these areas. And by going in and trenching it, we're stirring up what's already migrated.
No, we're
That's not
stirring
the-
up additional soil.
Additional.
If you trench a silt fence 6 inches into the ground in the middle of the woods, you're doing it with a shovel.
Yep,
So.
that's correct.
You're disturbing earth, and so and it's also people dragging materials down there and digging it in.
So-
And
so let me-
in conjunction with Greg, they were doing some of that, and we said, please don't, because you're actually you're disturbing more ground than you're
So it's not that
protecting.
it's not that we're disturbing material that migrated and we're just disturbing more natural
More
ground.
natural ground, right.
Okay.
So, and if the water were coming out clean, then this wouldn't be an issue.
So the last piece of it is the water that's getting to this erosion control, siltation control, is it migrating under the bales, or they,
No.
It is holding it back?
Yeah.
okay.
We haven't had, again, until this, we haven't had issues. There were issues at the other site, but
you're
that was
telling me there's no
before we were using a frac tank.
All right.
Yeah, I think the bigger thing was not to have the discharge from, once it's coming out of the bag, you should be below whatever NTU is decided, whether it's 10, 20, 40, whatever. It shouldn't be more than 40 for certain, but so then you're just protecting the downstream area with the hay bales.
I'm
Yeah,
gonna get you
I
a
don't
real
think-
number. I'm remembering 40, but it's old.
All right, let's, because I'm looking at the hour here.
Yeah, and we have the
We're gonna
next
lose-
report is
We're
significant.
going to lose everybody. Let's hear about the analysis of your analysis.
I'm Vern Kokosa from Sanborn Head, and if you recall from the last meeting, we collected 4 samples of sediment and soil and submitted those for a couple of sets of analyses. One was for microscopy, basically looking at the particles under an electron microscope and under different kinds of light conditions to look at particle structure and composition. And then concurrently with that, running chemical analyses in a laboratory. And we also collected water samples from the groundwater seep, 3 surface water samples, not groundwater, I misspoke, surface water samples from the groundwaters, from the seep at the property line and then downstream. And submitted those for chemical analyses in the laboratory, pH, alkalinity, total suspended solids, and turbidity. And the purpose of the analysis was to satisfy the requirement in the enforcement order to try to identify the source and also the composition of the white sediment that was in the wetlands downstream of the site. To make a long story short, what the analysis, both sets of analyses on both the soil and the water sediment analyses all pointed to was that the sediment is actually composed of calcium carbonate that has crystallized to form calcite. It looks like a sand particle, but when you look at it under an electron microscope, it's very clear that it has like a crystalline structure. And also under those same analyses, it showed that its calcium content was high, which also indicates that it's calcite. That was further corroborated by the chemical analyses, which also showed that the sediment content was high in calcium content, indicating it was total calcium analysis were run, indicating that it was calcium carbonate. I guess the other thing that it showed, I guess, is that based on these analyses, what we think that the mechanism for how the sediment is getting there is as follows. We think that the surface water and/or precipitation infiltrates down through the recycled concrete fill. Calcium carbonate and calcium compounds leach into the water. The water makes its way, out to the groundwater seep and then exits the ground as seepage, just as it naturally would, and it has, because that's how the wetland was there in the first place, is because it's fed by groundwater seepage. And when the impacted water comes in contact with the atmosphere, it reacts with carbon dioxide, and then it forms calcium carbonate. And then that calcium carbonate then crystallizes to form calcite. So that was corroborated by the microscopy analysis, which indicated that the particle structure of the sediment and its chemical composition, meaning mostly calcium, was very different than the recycled concrete fill itself. And the sediment was very different than the on-site native soil, the native glacial till. And so all the lines of evidence all pointed towards this mechanism of, leaching and then recrystallizing into calcium carbonate and then calcite. I think it's also important to state, what we think is not happening. I mean, the results of the microscopy analysis and the laboratory testing both tell us that the sediment didn't get there from a washout or from being just sediment being transported over land and breaching the erosion controls. It also tells us that it didn't come from subsurface erosion, like seepage coming out of the ground and washing soils and taking it with it. Because if it did, the sediment would have been very similar in particle structure to either the recycled concrete fill or the on-site glacial till soils, and that was not the case. So I think it's also, because of that, I also think it's important to say what's not happening. So that's the results of the analyses that you asked for, and so now I'm going to jump to the response plan and talk about what we propose to do going forward. And it's really a couple of things. First, we're proposing to install a collection sump immediately on the NRP's property, between the retaining wall, Jennifer, and the stone wall. So immediately up gradient of the groundwater seep, and then that will consist of prefabricated HCP pipe. It'll be perforated, surrounded by crushed stone, wrapped in geotextile. It'll have a submersible pump in it with a float switch, and then that water will then be pumped to a separate dedicated frac tank, and then that water would be pre-treated, to reduce the calcium carbonate, either through aeration or chemical precipitation, and a specialty contractor who will be hired to design and operate that pre-treatment system. And then after that water is pre-treated, then it would be introduced, be discharged to a third discharge point that would be near, in the same wetland area, so because we wanted to return the water from, to the point where it was intended to go in the first place. We didn't want to dry up the wetland. We wanted to send the water to where it was supposed to go. So that's one measure that we think will help. We're trying to do our best to collect as much impacted water as we can, pre-treat it, and then send it to where it naturally wants to go. Secondly, another measure that we think will help a lot is getting the site paved as soon as we can to reduce the infiltration of the water through the recycled concrete fill. And so the response plan includes a staged, phased and sequenced paving plan, and the intent is to basically expedite that work and get the site buttoned up, and capped basically with pavement and buildings, to reduce the amount of impacted water that's generated.
Just a quick follow-up, so the well point pump and treat, if you will.
Yeah.
Halfway, basically a cutoff well above the seep. Do we know that there's, I mean, right now, there's only one place where the seep is, I think there's only one place where the seep is manifests itself. Are we confident that that will draw the water down enough to prevent other seeps elsewhere?
Well, I think it will do, I think it will collect the water from the seep that produces the most water. And that's the one that creates sort of the surface water channel that runs down through there. So I think it will do a good job of collecting the water that's at the seep at the most upgraded end. But because of the lay of the land and physical constraints and how deep you can go, there is about, 15 to 20 feet of topographic relief there from the property line, heading down through the woods. And so, because the depth of the collection sump, has some limited depth, there will continue to be some groundwater that will, pass as it naturally does today and discharges to the wetland. But I do think most of the water that's being produced in that and entering that wetland is coming from that one main seep that is at the most upgraded end. So will it collect all of it? No, I don't think so, but I think it will collect most of it, and I think it'll help.
Okay. The stormwater infiltrators, I know that we had the recycled glass issue beneath them, but we've since removed all those, excavated everything on it, put crushed stone,
No, put glacial till.
back underneath those. So introducing surface water back into these infiltrators in the right location, the right way, is there any concern that you would have that's going to simply run through this concrete material and simply pick up the chemical again and continue to deposit it over time?
I think the developer has followed your request and removed the concrete, recycled concrete fill out from underneath the infiltration systems. So I don't believe that will be an issue. I mean, if it had stayed there, I would have had that concern, but I think, that work has been done to my knowledge, right? And I guess crushed stone has been placed on native soils, and then the structures installed.
Yeah, we've been doing inspections of bottom excavation to confirm that they're down to natural. And then we come back out and inspect the fill material below the systems and actually take a sample.
So we're expecting the infiltrators, everything at that point within the confines to really infiltrate mostly down and not laterally into any of this concrete fill material, therefore minimizing that potential possibility. Okay. So the last piece is the cleanup, I suppose, once you get that all in. So what do you do from,
That's true. So the last piece on that wetland on the west side, the last piece is to, again, use hand tools, to remove the sediment and do that with, on foot with hand tools and bag the material and remove it from the wetlands. I think similar to what it was done before.
Well, this has impacted a stream channel well onto the airport property, below an old beaver dam at this point. I don't know that that's going to be all hand excavated out. I mean, that's a massive amount of material to be removing from this site. And also, now I have the concern of all of this going on off property. I think we should have written acknowledgement from the two property owners that this work is permitted on their sites.
I would agree with that.
Well, I guess what I would say is, what they had stated in the plan here is that we would actually submit a plan on or before June 28th, as to how that sediment would be removed.
I'm not saying you haven't complied with that.
Okay.
I'm just saying that now that we have a plan, there are going to be other concerns moving forward.
I think we mapped out a number of steps and they're following those steps, and we're getting close, but we're not, we're we're not prepared to take that final step yet. I don't think you've really determined the full magnitude of that downstream impact off of your property and onto other properties. But the first step was always identify where it's coming from, be confident it can be stopped. Second is to understand how you can capture it and not make it migrate further. You've reported that pretty well. That last step where is what you're probably about to embark upon.
Joe, real quick question here. Calcium carbonate, I need you to educate me a little bit. Are we saying that the calcium carbonate is a result of some of the recycled concrete that may have been used on the site?
Yes.
We are.
Yes.
And the material that's made it down onto the other properties, is that contain calcium carbonate?
The white-looking sediment that you see, that's in the, yes, that's what it is.
So, is there any more recycled concrete subterranean that needs to be removed?
I guess I can't comment on that myself. I don't know the answer to that question.
So, because in my mind, I'm not a chemist, but take away the source.
And that was the thinking, taking away the source or eliminate, or at least cutting the pathway of the water, wanting to infiltrate through it. That was the idea behind the
Cutting the
paving.
pathway, but then you're not gonna contain it forever. It's gonna find its way somewhere.
I've heard twice now, and that's why I asked the question about
Yeah.
infiltrating water in through the collection system. What I heard twice is that as fast as they can stabilize the site and get it ready for pavement, introduction of water down into that material goes away.
I hear that, but that
That's
doesn't.
what's that window of time?
That doesn't remove, so you think, and I'm asking you your opinion, you think that would, even if there's still calcium carbonate down there, even if there's still recycled concrete down there, that won't have any exposure anymore? You think the stormwater system is enough to mitigate and segregate the waters?
I asked the question. I'm not so sure.
And I'm not so sure either.
So, what I'm trying to understand, and I think I do understand, because I've heard it a couple of times now, is that the sooner you can tighten up the surface of that site to prevent water from getting down vertically, outside of the drainage system, down, once it does get there, it's going to move through the concrete material, it's going to pick up material in the shorter term until it's paved. When it does that, you're gonna have this intercept pump and treat system. That's what I've heard you say. And that once you do stabilize it, your question becomes, does any water still come through there? And does this pump and treat system go away at some point, or does it run forever, or when does it stop?
And I think I know the answer to it, and that's the reason why I'm asking the question, is,
So the truth is,
I think we're still.
your pavement is your pavement, and your collection system is channeled into the infiltrators. The infiltrators are constructed in a way that I have better level of confidence. I'm not gonna get down into this concrete material. It's gonna get down through the good stone and down to the till. But at some point, that's gonna wanna dissipate and move out.
It's still there.
Does that pick up in the concrete anywhere? And I think the answer is
Well, if the concrete is
possibly.
there, it will.
And
I think
agree-
possibly,
agree with
yeah.
you. I agree with you. So-
And that's not talking about garden areas or any roof infiltration, or actually, roof infiltration is probably going to structure, but any unpaved areas are going to continue to accept some level of water.
Paved or unpaved, what I don't,
Outside the pavement that's not controlled by the drainage system or collected by the drainage system is going to seep into the ground. And if there's any of this recycled concrete fill under that area, the water's going to go through it, and then it's going to seep, go sideways out into the drainage system. And, and naturally, like it does now.
I'm trying to avoid.
So that's going to continue to have the same effect.
In my mind, as this whole thing's been discussed, what I'm facing mentally two decisions. Do you make them take the concrete out? Catastrophic. Or do you recognize you're always gonna get something and put some sort of perimeter interceptor into a pump and treat that's there forever as part of their system? It may never function, but if the water moves through and you've got that, they need to deal with it, or at least they identify it. And those are the two things I'm wrestling with, is which one's least costly and which one's more reliable. And I think it's at this point, I just can't even imagine the impact on taking out all the concrete, other than it should have been there to begin with, but, you know, that's besides the point.
So, I know, so then what? Say, okay, go ahead, pave it, bury the mistake. I mean, we're burying the mistake or we're fixing it. And I understand your point. There might be a point of diminishing returns where we simply can't get any more. And if that happens, and if you tell me that's the case, then there has to be a system installed to capture it, separate of the stormwater system. Has to be. We can't, in good conscience, allow that stuff to stay there.
From the very beginning of the project to the modification through the drainage system to constructing it, I've had underlying concerns of how much water the site could handle, how much could you get into the ground, and where does it go, and how does it move through?
Yeah, but now we have this, add this to it.
But that's what I'm saying, and now it's likely, even though your best intention is to get it down straight vertically through this good stone material, inevitably, it's gonna hit the glacial till and it's gonna radiate, and it's gonna be down in that concrete
And
layer.
it's gonna breach somewhere.
Forever.
Well, forever's a long time, so I'd like to see some kind of a system designed to capture it, separate of the stormwater. Because the stormwater's going to the river at some point, and we ought not to be discharging calcium carbonate into the river for the next 100 years. That's irresponsible on our part, and we know about it.
So that's why I've been listening and trying to answer the questions, and I don't see much alternative between one or the other.
Well, it's either, I think that you got two choices. You get in there and dig it out and get it all out, or find a way to capture it independent of the stormwater system.
And it is late, and I'm not the scientist, I'm just stupid enough or smart enough to ask the questions. We have the professionals on the staff here.
Well, we have two.
That's our concern. I think we put it back on them and say, bring it to us at the next meeting.
Well,
We need to know that.
One other question would be, if you're gonna have calcium carbonate come to the surface, and then once it hits the carbon dioxide, it
Crystalline.
transforms into a,
It's almost like a cementatious slime layer, right?
what's
Is it a
the
crystal?
quality of that material, and what harm does that material do to the wetlands, if any? That's a question you have to have. You may not like the looks of it, the color of it, but what harm does it cause to the environment?
Well,
Is there any answer to that question?
the calcite itself is naturally occurring. I mean, it's a mineral in limestone rock, and it's you know, the calcium carbonate itself has very low toxicity. I mean, you and I eat it for antacids, and it's the eggs of, you know, eggshells. I mean, that's calcium carbonate. So it has the calcium carbonate itself is low toxicity, and we don't need to worry about that. It's not even on a list of hazardous materials. All right, so that I don't think we need to worry about that. I guess to try to get to your question about having an independent interceptor drain or something like that, I think what the applicant would like to do is or the developer would like to do is to let us try to install this collection sump, and let us operate it, and let us see, you know, and let us, you know, we want to get the site paved, and let's see how it changes. I mean, we can monitor, you know, the water quality in that collection sump and see how it improves over time. Hopefully it will. We're hoping we think it will. And so we're going to be doing, you know, water quality testing, you know, as part of that pre-treatment process anyways, to check its effectiveness. So as the water is pulled out of that, you know, out of that collection sump, we'll be looking at the water quality coming in and going out, and we'll you know, as the site becomes more and more paved, we should see an improvement in water quality over time, and I'm interested in seeing that too. I want to see how that turns out.
I'm interested in knowing what calcium carbonate does to a wetland resource area. I understand it may not be toxic to us, but what doesn't hurt us can really damage a resource area possibly. So I need to know what, if any, damage that will cause the resource area downstream, all the way to the river. If I'm confident in a report that tells me it's inert, that's a different
It's not a matter
But I-
of
It's not a matter of inert either, because it's coated the whole
So that's the
face
kind
of
of
the stream.
information
So
I'm
any
see- I'm s-
benthic organisms or all the type of stuff that was living in
Root
there
zone.
isn't living in there now.
Yeah,
So I
root zone
guess-
plants, critters that live just below the surface, if this is there. It's
So that's-
much more complicated.
So that's, what you just heard is the problem I'm having. And that's why I use the term burying our mistake. The recycled concrete down there is a mistake. If it's going to cause problems long-term, wetland resource area, that's really what we're here for.
You need to understand what problems it causes to the environment. Does it kill the animals? Does it create a dead spot in the stream
Yes,
because it's there?
yes.
Or is it harmless?
So-
It's just something, well, I
Well,
get accustomed to
yeah.
it and no problem.
Harmless.
We gotta find out what's the answer to that
Well,
question.
I think we're going to do that. So that's
Because,
one of the,
You
that's
know, you
one.
raised the issue, do you take all the recycled concrete out of the ground,
I mean, that's,
which is the cause of the problem?
yeah.
And that's the site, do they go through the entire site and every granule of that material you put on the site is removed?
Well, if we find out it's toxic to the river and toxic to the resource area, that's an option that's on the table.
And now, do they have it under any of the buildings they've constructed?
Well, I don't know.
It's still being used on site outside the resource area, outside the buffer zone.
Well, if it's still being used on the site, it's gonna end up in the groundwater that gets into the wetlands.
So that issue of the recycled concrete and the calcium carbonate is something that's going to require some research. Right now, tonight, I think the immediate action that we need to take is with regard to the dewatering. I recommend we take action on that and don't take any action on anything else, but collect.
Everything else under advisement.
Take everything else under advisement and do some more homework on that. That's my recommendation.
45 minutes ago, my inclination was to consider a very strict condition of release of the cease and desist. I'm less inclined to consider that right now until I have a better understanding of what the overall impact is.
Okay.
We're talking about two different issues, right?
Yeah, we are.
We are.
So-
We absolutely are.
The first issue, as we
But the
discussed,
calcium carbonate is in the water that you're in the water that you're dewatering, and
But that-
eventually that's making its way down
Yeah.
gradient.
that's going to be treated in the frac tank and removed before it's
Yeah.
dewatered.
We haven't had that issue in the dewatering.
Okay. So you
So
said,
even though we're intercepting what could be leachate.
Again, the
for a better term,
dewatering is mostly surficial water. I mean, some are building foundation water, but it's water that's accumulating on the site
Okay,
as a result of precipitation.
so not moving down through
No.
the crushed stone, through the concrete layer.
but understand, they have recycled concrete still on site.
Right, again, two different issues. The
All right,
dewatering
okay.
is something that's been ongoing from rainfall. The
Right, so we're
site
gonna-
no longer percolates the water down.
We'll treat them as two different issues.
Yeah.
We'll treat them as two, so what I
So I'm
request.
still leaning towards with very strict conditions, consider releasing
Yep.
the cease and desist on
So
dewatering.
let's list them so that we can be productive.
All right, so they submit the credentials of a man the person who is capable and
trained.
and trained to operate the, well, frac tank, for lack of a better term, but all of the.
Frac tank operator.
All of the.
We're going to call the position a
all of the water
frac tank-
treatment.
Frac tank operator.
Right.
It's going to be an operator's position. That's what we're
Yeah,
going
so
to
they
call
submit
it.
the credentials that demonstrate that he's capable of doing that. That person have a backup who's named, that the person reports to the Conservation Office and to our environmental monitor on a daily basis, that he's on site and that they are going to be conducting dewatering operations. That we should state a penalty that should the environmental monitor and staff go out there and find that the operator is not on site and dewatering's running, it needs to be held to be paid.
Well, that's going to be a shutdown and a fine.
There needs to be a specified level of turbidity that's permissible on the final discharge from this treatment stream, whether the dirt bags are needed or not, or whether they are needed, whatever that final discharge is, that it meets those standards, and we need to give them that number.
So let me just see if, recap and maybe add something. So we're going to identify the operator. on a daily basis, operator or operators, that are certified to operate the tank. I'd like you to identify the training plan that the operator or operators receive. I'd like you to identify the supervisor that validates that operator is working that frac tank every day. I'd like to know how many tanks are being operated, and how many tanks you have on site, and are they all operating at the same time, or are some standing by? And I think we've said this before, but this information needs to be conveyed the start of business every day, that the tank is going to be in operation. And I think telling you what the penalties would be for not complying with this, I think you know what that would be. But I'll tell you. It's going to be an immediate cease and desist order, and it's going to be the implementation of daily fines for violating this operating procedure for the frac tanks.
Fair enough.
I want to see if anybody else has anything else they want to add or comment on this, because this is to lift the cease and desist and allow them to start the frac tank up. Jen?
One clarification, you used the word certify, and I just want to make sure that maybe is relaxed a little bit, because I'm not sure someone can be certified to operate.
If there's no such thing as a
Joe
certification.
said submit credentials.
Credentials. I don't believe there is a certification.
What I'm actually looking for, we're all trying to say the same thing. What I'm really looking for is the identity of the operator, the identity of the supervisor, and the identity of what kind of training plan that operator has. How did you teach that guy to run the tank?
Fair enough.
And also the training plan should be in writing.
Oh, yeah, no, we want it all in writing. Hold on one. Go ahead.
The one request we have, because of the water that we've received in days past and the 3 days of water that we're facing in terms of rain coming this weekend, if we have a third party come on site, we'd like to be able to start dewatering activities tomorrow to avoid
How are you going to get this done that fast? How are you going to get a trained operator? You don't have a training
a
plan.
trained third party operator
Subcontractor, professional consultant.
who only does this.
You're going to have to take that information directly to the administrator first thing in the morning, and so that she can be satisfied that, we're not buying a pig in a poke here.
That's fair.
We'll
be in touch with Jennifer's office.
I mean, that's, otherwise, it's just not going to work. We want to help you get this done, but we're not going to sacrifice the standards because you're in a hurry.
We'll make sure we comply with those requirements.
So Jenny, you pretty clear on what we want?
Yeah, except I have site visits tomorrow from 8:45 a.m. to 12:30, and then from 1 to 4, so.
So you got to find Jen. Because the lifting of the cease and desist is not going to happen until she's satisfied that what we just recited to you is met.
Okay.
Everybody pretty much understand that? I mean, okay, so.
Are we issuing that as a revised enforcement order, lifting the cease and desist
So
with the,
lifting the cease and desist with those conditions, with those conditions are.
Basically, it's reissuing the enforcement order, and
With-
under the
with-
cease and desist piece, you will simply put all these conditions in, and failure to meet any one of these, this still applies.
Then the cease and desist reapplies if they don't meet the standards, and
Okay.
again, it's identifying the operator.
I've got 'em
identifying the
all.
trainer. You got them all.
I got 'em all.
Sorry about that.
Sorry to be redundant, but you know something?
got 'em all.
We've done this too many times,
Yep.
and
Members of the commission, I just wanted to, Bill Such from Goulston Stores. I just wanted to amplify a little bit what Dan was saying about a professional operator. I think it's, given your concerns about training and having the right employee in charge of operating these frac tanks, fully trained, up to speed, it's going to take us a little bit of time. We're not going to hire be able to hire someone tomorrow and get them fully trained. It's going to be at least a week, I think, to get that person fully trained, on site, up to speed. And I am concerned about the weather that's coming, the weather that we've had. So my thinking was simply that if we're able to, and I'm not sure we can do this, but we would hire a professional who operates frac tanks for a living, who would fully satisfy
I
Jen.
recommended that a half hour ago.
Okay. So
Who you rent frac tanks from,
and it would allow us.
they can come with an
So
operator.
we're going to run that operator by Jen, and if she's satisfied, and I'm sure she will be, we'd like to be able, once that's happened, to get these tanks up and running a bit sooner, because we are worried about weather.
but understand something, that's fine, but you're going to be married to that guy.
Until we have someone fully trained and Jen approves them,
And
yeah.
when I say married to the guy, if he's taking a lunch break, or if he's got to go home early, or if, whatever.
We understand.
The dog eats the homework, I don't care what it is.
That's fair.
You're out of business.
We understand.
It's got to be crystal clear, there's going to be no exceptions,
Understood.
right? Okay, so what do you need, Jen? You need a motion?
Sure.
Move that we amend the enforcement order as stated, restated, and doubly restated.
Motion and a,
Second.
motion and a second. Any further discussion? There is none. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? And that's unanimous. The enforcement order is amended. I sincerely recommend that with regard to the other discussion on calcium carbonate, we take it under advisement and discuss it again at the next meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion.
A vote is taken.
Yes, sir. Go ahead. Yes.
I don't know that there's any harm to allowing us to install the well point. It's on our property. It could stop further
I don't
seepage
think
and
it's
collect.
shown as on your property, though. It's shown as off property.
It's a schematic drawing, but it's the
There's like all of 4 feet between the
plan
wall
would be-
and the stone wall.
The plan would be to install that 18 and 24-inch sump in that area. And we believe, we are interested in stopping this and seeing what progress we can make. And while
Where is that sump going to pump to?
Separate frac tank.
separate frac tank,
Another frac tank?
correct, that will be operated under the same guidelines that were just imposed.
Jennifer, your opinion?
See no harm in doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it can't be any worse than it already is.
So you're saying do no harm?
Right, I mean, if it has a chance of improving the situation, I think it's worth doing.
Doug?
No harm.
I hear everybody saying okay. Does that require anything? Can that be part
I
of the
would make a
EO?
motion to,
We're not making any determination of requiring them to do any work on property other than their own.
Their own.
Oh, yeah, you gotta-
If they do that on their own, it's
Can't go
totally up
outside.
to them to justify it on their own. But, if,
It can't,
from
you
a
just can't go
BMP, it's a good approach.
Do we want that BMP to be part of the EO or?
yes.
Okay,
It's
so-
Part 2, so we'll keep the issues separate, so they're
So that'll be part of the enforcement order, part
a
two?
separate EO, because we issued 2
Yes.
separate EOs,
Okay,
so
all right, you want a
second
separate, you want
EO
a separate vote? All those
to
in
allow
favor?
them to do that.
Modify it to allow the well point pump and treat to be installed.
Modify to allow,
To allow well point and treatment on property.
on property, in big letters, on property.
Okay. So,
Okay?
Thank you.
All right, anything else?
I made the motion, no second and no vote.
Joe, Deb, unanimous,
Yeah,
without
yeah.
Lou.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Now you have a vote.
Okay,
And you've had one abstention this whole time.
gotcha.
Anything else you want brought up, or can we give them
Nope.
2 weeks? Come back in 2 weeks?
So
Talk about
continue to,
calcium carbonate?
continue to 5/8.
Very good. Move to 5-8.
Motion NA. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? You stand continued. Thank you, guys.
So, going back on the agenda, I think the emergency cert for Harold Parker, which is just you ratifying my issuing emergency cert to allow them to breach a beaver dam at a culvert. This particular trapper did not seem interested in installing a flow control device, so I said if Harold Parker is not able to maintain the cleared culvert, you won't be issuing any emergency certs that don't include a flow control device. So, just sort of that caveat.
You're talking about beaver deceivers?
Right.
Flow control devices? So no cert, no deceiver, no cert?
Well, we're issuing the first one because they've let it build up and they need to do something. So
Yeah.
they need to clear out the pipe. The
Yeah,
water's almost
but
overtopping the
I agree with you.
road.
I mean,
Right.
we know they work.
But if you can't maintain the problem, just
No.
do what the town does and install a deceiver, or private property owners, if you can't keep up with it, you need
I
the
agree.
deceiver. These people didn't seem willing to install one, so I just added that as a
No,
condition.
I agree with you 100%.
Okay.
Anybody disagree?
So just ratify.
So moved.
You have the chair back.
Thanks.
So,
Sorry.
Glad you have that one.
Joe Deb.
Unanimous, so.
Okay. And then,
Meadowwood.
542 Meadowwood. We continued Meadowwood. So 542 Salem Street is just ratifying the EO.
Oh, we did, I'm sorry.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
Okay, and that was for the, actually, and releasing the EO, because this was the guy with the boxes, the,
Yeah, he was within 50 feet, he made it.
right. So we're ratifying, and now I say, would you vote to release the EO?
Okay.
Do you want a motion to release?
Well, I guess we can wait till he installs his markers and
Okay,
does
very
his
good.
things. Okay, so
Motion to adjourn?
Hold on,
Yes.
let's make sure.
are we there yet? I don't
Hold on,
know.
not
I've
yet.
lost track of my pages.
I want to make sure.
Did we get
Make sure,
everything?
Jen, guys,
Jamie
all-
says we got everything, so,
We got everything. Motion to adjourn, sir.
Yes.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and that's unanimous.
10.
All set, guys, thank you.